Chapter 21-26. At this moment, the elders of the Zhuo family were feeling very conflicted. They never thought that Zhuo Chuhui would have such outstanding power. Even more so, they never thought that with such outstanding power and cultivation, he would hide it all this time and be content to live as an ordinary person in seclusion in a small corner of the West Prefecture. These elders knew that he was not of the Zhuo family's bloodline and had always been on guard against the possibility that the Zhuo family would fall into his hands. However, from the looks of it now, they felt that their actions were laughable and petty. For a person with such shocking power to be willing to live an ordinary life and keep a low profile for so many years, it was clear to see that he did not have such intentions at all. If he had not stepped in to save the master would have been severely injured even if he had managed to escape death from that ferocious attack. "Who are you?" The old man furrowed his brows and stared at him with a serious look on his face. The fact that he had been able to save Zhuo Jinglin under such circumstances showed that he was no ordinary person. However, even the old master of the Zhuo family could not possibly be a match for him. He could not possibly have saved Zhuo Jinglin under such circumstances. They were well aware of the Zhuo family's power, but where had this person come from? "Who are you, sir? Why have you brought people to cause trouble for the Zhuo family? You've attacked with a killing blow. What are you trying to do?" A sharp and intimidating light shot out from Zhuo Chuhui's eyes as the aura of a powerful cultivator burst forth from his body. His unyielding attitude did not hide his rising murderous intent at all. Zhuo Jinglin, who was standing next to him, felt both gratified and complicated at the same time when he saw the intimidating aura from his older brother's body. He was gratified that his older brother had such great power and was gratified that he was so outstanding and powerful. He was also conflicted because his older brother had such great and outstanding power but had kept it hidden for his sake and was willing to live as an ordinary and inconspicuous person. The first master of the West Prefecture. Not only did the people in the West Prefecture not pay any attention to him, even those outside the West Prefecture did not know who he was. If it had not been for the fact that he had almost met with a mishap today, it was likely that his older brother would not have made a move and would not have let them know about his great power. However, he believes that after today, no one in or out of the West Prefecture would ever dare to underestimate him again. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel excited. "Big brother, they're from our Zhuo family's archenemy, the Ho family. I found out that they had designs on our Zhuo family's businesses, so I took drastic measures against them and made them suffer heavy losses. Who would have thought that they would bring people to our doorstep today?" The 40-something-year-old head of the Zhuo family, Zhuo Jinglin, was like a child complaining to an adult at this moment. He gave a simple account of the entire situation to his elder brother. His tone was clearly filled with anger, but his eyes were filled with unconcealable excitement and anticipation. He wanted Big Brother to teach them a lesson. This way, not only would he be able to establish his elder brother's authority, the elders of the Zhuo family would no longer use the fact that his elder brother was not of the Zhuo family bloodline. When the elders standing behind heard Zhuo Jinglin's words, they all looked at him strangely. This was because they had never seen such a childish side to him after being the head of the Zhuo family for so long. Looking at his expression, wasn't he just like a child complaining to an adult? Chapter 21-27. Hearing this, Zhuo Chuhui's expression sank and his sharp gaze swept towards the gray-robed elder. His deep voice carried a powerful aura as it enveloped the area. "How dare you come looking for trouble after scheming against the Zhuo family? Do you think that the Zhuo family is a place where just anyone can trample on?" As soon as his dignified voice fell, his figure moved and he immediately launched an attack. As he threw a punch, the powerful air current within his body shot out along with the wind from his palm towards the gray-robed elder. When the gray-robed elder saw Zhuo Chuhui's sudden attack, he instinctively retreated and defended himself. However, as the two exchanged blows, he was unable to dodge in time and was struck in the chest by Zhuo Chuhui's palm. Bang! Pft! A heavy palm strike landed. The gray-robed old man let out a muffled groan and spat out a mouthful of blood. He couldn't help but stagger back until he collided with the person behind him. Only then did he stabilize himself and not fall to the ground in a sorry state. He raised his head in shock and saw the person in front of him with a dark expression. His hands were clasped behind his back as he shouted in a deep voice. "Scram! If there's a next time, I won't hold back." The deep and stern cry was filled with dignity as a powerful aura forced the people around him to retreat. None of them dared to step forward. The gray-robed elder clutched his chest and glanced at Zhuo Chuhui in dissatisfaction. He then brushed his sleeves and cried out, "Let's go." Two of the cultivators supported him and quickly left. Following their departure, the crowd surrounding the Zhuo family also dispersed. Only a few commoners and a few family members were left in the city to watch this scene in astonishment. How could the Zhuo family have such a powerful person? I've never heard of him before. That's right. Who is this person? Why haven't I heard of him before? Didn't the Zhuo family head address him as Big Brother? Have you forgotten that the Zhuo family head has a big brother who lives in the West Mansion? Oh. That's right, that's right. I remember that the Zhuo family head's big brother is called Zhuo Chuhui, right? It's just that it said that his strength is very ordinary, and there hasn't been anything outstanding about him for so many years. I didn't expect that he's the one who's truly hidden his strength. Fortunately, the eldest brother of the Zhuo family has such strength. Look at how dangerous that scene was. If the head of the Zhuo family was hit, even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. The people of the Ho family have their eyes on the Zhuo family and want to swallow them whole. Yes. Who would have thought that the first master of the Zhuo family was such a hidden expert? His strength was probably the strongest in the Zhuo family, right? I remember that old Master Zhuo hasn't advanced in many years, and Patriarch Zhuo is at the early immortal sage realm. It seems like Patriarch Zhuo is stronger than them. It's strange that people with such power would live in seclusion in the Zhuo family's west residence as if they were hiding from the world. If it weren't for the scene today, many people would have forgotten that the Zhuo family had such a person. Everyone in the surroundings was discussing amongst themselves while they dispersed. On the other hand, Zhuo Chuhui glanced at Zhuo Jinglin at the entrance of the Zhuo clan's residence and said, "You haven't finished dealing with the matter, so go deal with it. I'll be heading back first." As soon as he finished speaking, he strode into the residence and prepared to return to the west residence. However, after taking a few steps, he was called back. "Big brother, wait a moment." Zhuo Jinglin called out to him and strode towards him. "Big brother, let's talk." Chapter 21-28. Chuhui, thank you for saving the master. The elders expressed their gratitude. He's my younger brother, so saving him is something I ought to do. There's no need to thank me. Zhuo Chuhui said, then looked at Zhuo Jinglin and said, "You go take care of things first. I'll return to the West Mansion first." With that, he didn't give them a chance to say anything and strode towards the West Mansion. Seeing him leave, Zhuo Jinglin and the elders looked at each other, then walked towards the East Mansion. After what had happened today, they really had to discuss it. As the crowd dispersed, Fengzhou, who had been watching from the corner of the street, smiled and also walked forward. After entering the mansion, he walked towards the West Mansion. In the blink of an eye, the news that Zhuo Chuhui had saved the master and defeated the Ho family's ancestor quickly spread throughout the mansion. Even the old master had heard the news. After hearing this, everyone in the Zhuo mansion was shocked and felt that it was unbelievable. After all, the West Mansion had always lived in seclusion and the first master of the West Mansion had been extremely ordinary for so many years. How could he suddenly be described as a powerful cultivator? And even saved the master? They really didn't dare to believe it. However, because everyone had seen it with their own eyes, even if they didn't dare to believe it, no one questioned it. After discussing the matter, they ordered people to pay more attention to the various properties, and ordered people to secretly monitor the movements of the Ho family. After discussing the matter, the clan elders looked at the patriarch on the main seat and said, "Patriarch, how do you think we should deal with the West Prefecture?" "What do you mean, deal with it?" The master looked at them and asked, "Deal with what?" "No, what we mean is, can the first master of the West Mansion be invited to discuss it with us? He has the strength, if he can be used by the Zhuo family." Before he could finish, he was interrupted. "He's my older brother." Shuo Jinglin frowned at the elder who had spoken and said, "What do you mean by if he can be used by the Zhuo family? Just because he's powerful, does he have to contribute to the Zhuo family?" At this point, Shuo Jinglin snorted coldly, "Don't forget how the elders have prevented me from entrusting my older brother with important tasks all these years. Back then, I didn't allow him to get involved in anything. Don't tell me that just because he saved my life today, he has to work for the Zhuo clan. That's not what we meant." The crowd sighed inwardly. Shuo Jinglin stood up and looked at the crowd. He didn't interfere with the Zhuo family's matters back then, and he won't interfere today either. However, just because he doesn't interfere doesn't mean that he will stand by and do nothing when the Zhuo family is in trouble. Just like what happened today, if I or the Zhuo family were in danger, he would definitely help. Needless to say, I believe that he would do so. He looked at the crowd and said, "I only hope that after today's incident, the elders will no longer treat him as an outsider." Everyone was speechless for a long time. After a long while, they said, "We understand. I'm going to my mother's place. Everyone, please go back first." As he spoke, he walked out. Seeing the patriarch leave, everyone looked at each other and left one after another. In the old madam's courtyard, she was currently sitting on a soft couch, listening to the middle-aged woman beside her talk about what had happened in the manor today. Chapter 21-29. The middle-aged woman paused and glanced at her mistress before continuing, "That's why everyone in the residence is talking about this. However, I heard that First Master returned to the West Mansion and didn't come to the East Mansion." The old madam's eyes flickered and she sighed softly. "So he has that kind of power. He even hid it from me, his mother. I've let him down. I know that it was selfish of me to let him stay in the Zhuo family, especially when he has such power and cultivation. First Master is filial. He listens to everything Madam says. Big Brother also followed Madam's instructions and stayed in the Zhuo family to look after them." The middle-aged woman smiled and said, "Although the First Master has been hiding his strength for so many years, today, the Second Master and the Zhuo family were both in danger, and it was he who resolved it. The First Master still has the Zhuo family and the Second Master in his heart." "Mother!" a voice called out. The middle-aged woman stepped aside and the old madam looked at the newcomer. "You're here," the old madam said and gestured for him to sit. "Mother, I'm here to talk to you about something." Shuo Jinglin looked at her and said, "What is it? Tell me. I'm sure you already know about Big Brother's matter." "Yes." The old madam replied and gestured for him to continue. "Actually, I came here today to tell you that I want Big Brother to set up his own residence outside." As soon as he said this, his mother sat up with a dark expression. "What did you say?" the old madam asked in a low voice. Seeing this, he braced himself and said, "Mother, you know Big Brother's power. With his power, I think it's too much for him to stay in the small West Mansion. His children are all grown up. After what happened today, I want to discuss this with Big Brother and let him set up his own residence outside." "No." She refused without thinking. Her tone was firm, as if there was no room for discussion. "Mother, I know what you're thinking, but that's not fair to Big Brother. He has such outstanding and powerful power. You can't break his wings and stop him from flying. You can't imprison him in the small West Mansion." Hearing this, the old madam's expression changed slightly. "Your eldest brother won't agree either." "Yes, Big Brother won't agree because he listens to you. If you don't agree, he won't agree. That's why I came to find you, mother. He looked at her and said, how has Big Brother lived in the Zhuo family for the past few decades? Mother, you should know that I didn't mention it before because I was worried that Big Brother's strength wasn't outstanding. If he went out to establish his own mansion, he would encounter a lot of trouble. But now, Big Brother clearly has the strength. Mother, why don't you agree? The old madam didn't say anything. She just closed her eyes in silence. Mother. Shuo Jinglin called out. You should go back. Old madam said slowly. Mother, think about what I've just said. I will discuss this matter with my father, he said before turning to leave. On the other side, in the West residence. Because there were fewer servants in the West mansion, there was usually less gossip, so no one in the West mansion knew about the East mansion. Compared to the bustling East mansion, the West mansion was still the same as before, quiet and elegant. Chapter 2130. In the evening, Zhuo Junyue walked into Fengjiu's small courtyard. Seeing her sitting in the courtyard, he asked, you were looking for me? And, have a seat. She gestured for him to sit and poured a cup of tea. I wanted to tell you that I'm going back. As for the 3 spiritual herbs, you don't have to worry about them. I've already sent people to look for them. You're leaving. Hearing this, Zhuo Junyue was startled. There are some things I have to take care of. Your brother doesn't have enough herbs, so it's useless for me to stay. I'll be in 100 River City's Heavenly Pill House. When there's news, I'll send someone to inform you. She spoke slowly and took a sip of tea. And I understand. He nodded and held the teacup, but didn't drink it. Seeing this, she stood up and said, then I'll go back to my room to rest. You don't have to send me off when I leave. With that, she walked into her room. Seeing this, Zhuo Junyue sat for a while and drank his tea before getting up and leaving. In the room, Fengjiu entered the space to cultivate. She only came out when the sky gradually darkened. She jumped onto the roof of the courtyard and used the Aurora transmission scroll to leave the Zhuo family. Fengjiu, who was already able to control the Aurora transmission scroll well, left without anyone noticing when she left. There was no dazzling light when she teleported. They only knew that in the night, the green figure quietly left. On a small path outside 100 River City, Fengjiu, dressed in green, silently appeared. Like a ghost, her body turned slightly and appeared in the small path. She looked up at the night sky and walked slowly. At this time, she couldn't enter the city gate. However, she remembered that there was an inn outside the city. It should be in this area. She could rest there first and enter the city tomorrow morning. It was late at night and there was no one on the path. Only the faint twinkling stars in the sky and the bright moon, half of which peeked out from behind the clouds, hung in the sky like a shy young girl. When the night wind blew, the rustling of leaves could be heard from the forest on the side. The night cicadas chirped. In this dark night, it seemed a little strange. However, in such a place, she walked slowly and leisurely, as if she was admiring the stars and the moon. After walking for about a few hundred meters, a light vaguely appeared on the side of the road. She took a closer look and saw that it was indeed the inn. Thus, she quickened her pace and soon arrived outside the inn. Although it was late at night, there were still many people sitting around drinking and chatting on the first floor of the inn. There were also some people who were resting on the table. Compared to the quiet darkness outside, the inside was brightly lit and very lively. This seat, please come in. Please come in. Seeing that another guest had entered, the waiter welcomed him with a smile and said, there have been many guests these past few nights, so the rooms on the second floor are all empty. If young master doesn't mind, you can stay on the first floor for the night. She nodded and followed the waiter to a table inside. Young master, the night is cold. Would you like a pot of hot wine and some wine to go with the dishes? The waiter asked with a smile. Sure, she said and indicated for him to prepare. Chapter 21:31. Young master, if it's not enough, you can call me again, the waiter said and then left. She poured a glass of warm wine and took a sip. Then, she put down the glass and picked up her chopsticks to eat peanuts while sizing up the people on the first floor. After sizing them up, she noticed some problems. Other than some cultivators, most of these people were sick, especially a young woman in the corner. She was wearing plain clothes and was sitting on the ground in the corner with a 3-year-old child in her arms. It seemed that the shop owner was kind enough to let her and her child stay for the night. The child in the young woman's arms was pale and his little face was a little swollen. His clothes were wrapped up a lot, but he would still twitch occasionally. Seeing this, she called the waiter over. "Young master, do you have any orders?" The waiter came in front of her and asked. "What do that mother and son do?" She looked at the woman sitting on the ground in the corner and the child in her arms. The waiter followed Fingzhou's gaze and quickly said, "They're just passing by. This woman is quite pitiful. She said that because her child is seriously ill, she spent a lot of money to seek medical treatment, but it couldn't be cured. The doctor also said that the child won't be able to live for a few days. According to the woman, the child's father divorced her and she can't go back to her parents' home. She heard that the Heavenly Pill building has a ghost doctor with great medical skills, so she wants to seek medical treatment." Speaking of this, the waiter smiled and said, "Our shopkeeper is a good person. Seeing that it's cold outside and this woman is carrying a 3-year-old child, he let her in to rest for the night. In any case, even if she squats in the corner, it's still better than outside." Hearing this, Fingzhou nodded and said to the waiter, "Go and invite her over." "Ah." The waiter was stunned and didn't react for a moment. After Fingzhou said this, he realized that it was inappropriate, so he smiled and said, "I think they're quite pitiful. It's late at night, and the temperature is dropping. It's cold to squat there, so I want to invite her over for a cup of warm wine. Moreover, I know a little about medicine, so I can help her take a look at her child." Hearing this, a smile appeared on the waiter's face. "Young master, you're so kind. I'll go and invite them over." The waiter walked towards the corner as he spoke. The young woman crouched in the corner with the child in her arms. When she heard the waiter's words, she looked at the green-robed young man sitting at the table with some surprise. Although he was a man, he was still a young man. Thus, she got up and followed the waiter. "Young master." The young woman hugged the child. Her lips were dry and pale. "Sit." Fingzhou gestured and poured her a glass of warm wine. "Drink a glass of wine to warm your body." "Thank you, young master." The young woman thanked him and carefully sat down at the table. She held the child in one hand and drank the wine with the other. Because she drank too much, she accidentally choked. Cough, cough. The woman quickly put down the wine cup in her hand and used her hand to cover her mouth as she coughed lightly. After drinking a mouthful of wine, she felt a burning sensation and her originally cold body gradually warmed up. She couldn't help but feel grateful to the young master in front of her. "This young woman thanks young master." She stood up again and bowed, thanking him. "Take out your child's hand. I'll take his pulse." Fengzhou gestured and looked at the child in the woman's arms. Chapter 21:32. Fengzhou placed her finger on the child's pulse, and after a simple examination, she said, "This is wind convulsion, it's not a big problem." As she spoke, she withdrew her finger and took out the silver needles. "My medical skills are not bad, do you want me to give it a try?" The woman was slightly startled when she heard this, and for a moment, she held the child's hand tightly. Let him give it a try. Let the youth in front of her give it a try. Did he really know medical skills? What if something went wrong? Although she was worried, she also thought that since this youth was so kind-hearted, perhaps she should believe him this time. Thus, she said, "Young master, how do you want to try? Is there any danger? Those needles, where are you going to stab? Do you have to use these silver needles? The child is still so young, I'm worried." Hearing this, Fengjiu curled her lips into a smile. "I'm not treating anyone casually, I just happened to see you holding the child and squatting there. Your child is so young, so I wanted to help you. Up to you, if you don't want to, I won't force you." "No, young master's kindness, this woman is very grateful, but I don't know if young master can tell me the details of the child's illness?" she asked, thinking that if the youth could tell her, it would prove that he really knew medical skills. After all, the wind convulsion he mentioned was different from what the other doctors said, so she couldn't help but worry. The woman's cautious words made Fengjiu smile slightly. She looked at her and said, "Wind convulsion is also known as palpitations. People who suffer from this illness are extremely afraid of the cold, occasionally accompanied by slight twitching movements. When sleeping soundly at night, the patient will occasionally be startled awake, their heartbeat will accelerate, and they won't be able to fall asleep. If not treated in time, in less serious cases." She was interrupted before she could finish her sentence. "A young man like you is also learning to practice medicine here. Have you finished your apprenticeship? Do you have a doctor's badge?" A middle-aged man glanced at Fengjiu and snorted, "Do you think everyone has the ability to practice medicine? Or do you want to use this child as an experiment? What a vicious mind." Fengjiu raised his eyebrows slightly and glanced at the man with a faint smile. When the young woman heard this and saw the doctor's badge pinned to the middle-aged man's chest, she couldn't help but take a few steps back with the child in her arms. She looked at Fengjiu warily. Obviously, she believed the middle-aged man's words. After all, the other party was a doctor with a doctor's badge, and the youth in front of her looked so young. Even many old doctors said that there was no way to treat the illness, so how could this youth really have the ability to treat it? Could it be that he really wanted to use her child as an experiment? When she thought of this, she cautiously retreated with the child in her arms and said, "This madam thanks the young master, but the child is my life. Please forgive this madam for not daring to try." As she spoke, she hurriedly retreated to the corner with the child in her arms. Seeing this, Fengjiu shook his head and smiled. She was really meddling in other people's business. Fine. She originally wanted to help treat her child because of the child's young age, but who knew that the other party wouldn't appreciate her kindness? "Young lady, I see that you have some beauty. It's late at night and the cold wind outside is quite boring. If you let us brothers enjoy ourselves for a night, perhaps we'll even treat the child in your arms. How about it?" A tall and thin man sitting next to the doctor said as his eyes stared at the young woman's pretty face. Chapter 21:33. She looked at the middle-aged men in horror and swallowed her saliva. She couldn't help but take a few steps back. "Please don't joke around. How can a lowly woman like me stain your eyes?" "Ha ha ha ha, third brother, don't joke around with a lowly woman like her. How can such a beauty catch our eyes?" The other person laughed heartily. However, his gaze was fixed on the young woman. How could that blatant expression deceive the people seated on the first floor? The guests on the first floor were originally drinking and chatting or sleeping on the tables. When they heard their conversation, their gazes fell on them at this moment. Naturally, they could clearly see the expressions on the faces of those people. They glanced at the young woman. Her appearance could be considered delicate and pretty. Although she was wearing loose clothes, her voluptuous figure couldn't fool these men. "What do you mean by this beauty can't catch their eyes?" They thought that this wasn't a matter of whether she could catch their eyes or not. It was probably because they couldn't go overboard in front of so many people. Who knows, they might just kidnap this woman later. It was none of their business. Since they had seen it, they wouldn't meddle in other people's business and cause trouble. Thus, everyone averted their gazes and continued drinking and chatting. In the corner, Fingjo supported her cheek with one hand and played with her wine glass with the other. She looked at this scene with a smile on her lips. She took a sip of wine, put down the glass, and picked up a piece of marinated beef to eat. She didn't want to cause trouble, but the people at the other table drank a few glasses of wine. Not only did their voices become louder, one of them even walked towards her with a wine glass. As the man approached, the smell of alcohol hit her in the face. She couldn't help but frown. Before she could say anything, the man reached out and hugged her shoulder. Seeing this, she waved the chopsticks in her hand. Slap! Hiss! The chopsticks hit the man's wrist, causing him to suck in a breath of cold air in pain. He retracted his hand and glared at the young man who was drinking wine. "You brat, how dare you hit me!" As soon as he finished cursing, he threw a punch at Fingjo. Fingjo didn't even look at him. He used the chopsticks in his hand to hit the man's acupoint. The man's face changed and his figure suddenly retreated. For a moment, not only could he not speak, but he also couldn't breathe. Second brother. What happened? When the other three saw him standing there without moving for a long time and his body was still stiff, they couldn't help but quickly step forward. The man finally managed to catch his breath. He pointed at the young man in green who was drinking and said, "Take care of this brat." As soon as he finished speaking, he stepped forward again. Fengjiu glanced at the four people who were pouncing on him. The corners of his lips curled up, and the chopsticks in his hand shot out. With a swoosh, a sharp gust of air rushed out, and in the next moment, a shrill scream rang out. "Ah!" There was a chopstick stuck in the calf of the person who had pounced forward. The chopstick had pierced through, causing blood to seep out. The person crouched down and retreated. "Second brother!" One of them exclaimed as he looked at the chopsticks that had pierced through him. He could not help but turn around to look at the youth with a relaxed expression. Chapter 2134. These people were not weak, and one of them was even a doctor. Because of this, they did not want to get involved and cause trouble. However, this young man was quite courageous. He actually dared to challenge four people alone, and he even looked so relaxed. It was obvious that his strength was above the four of them. "Kill him." The other three people were enraged. They pulled out their weapons and charged forward. However, before one of them could get close to Fingjo, he was kicked away. He fell to the ground and cried out in pain. Seeing that the fight had started and that his instincts had been destroyed, the innkeeper could not help but run out and shout, "Hey, stop fighting, stop fighting." However, no one listened to him and stopped. Instead, they picked up things and threw them at Fingjo. Seeing those things being thrown at her, she frowned and glanced at those people. She slammed her hand on the table, and several chopsticks flew up from the chopstick holder on the table. With a whoosh, they all attacked the four people at the same time. "Ah!" Shrill screams came from the four people. The four people's legs were pierced by the chopsticks. One by one, they knelt down and could not even stand. "Still want to fight?" Fengjiu played with the wine cup in her hand and glanced at the four people. "No, no more, no more. Please spare our lives, young master. We were blind and did not recognize Mount Tai." The four people hurriedly begged for mercy. They lowered their heads and looked at each other, communicating with their eyes. A light flashed in their eyes. As the four of them begged for mercy, they suddenly leaped up, and something from their sleeves sprayed towards Fengjiu. At this moment, a cold glint flashed through Fengjiu's eyes, and she flicked her sleeve to brush away the medicine that was sprayed towards her. At the same time, four chopsticks flew out at the same time, and with a whoosh, they pierced through the space between the four people's brows, leaving behind four small holes that flowed with blood. This sudden scene caused the hearts of everyone watching to tighten. When they saw the green-robed young man show mercy and the four people begging for mercy, they thought that they would stop fighting. They didn't expect that the four people still wanted to throw the medicine at the green-robed young man. They also didn't expect that at that moment, the green-robed young man would directly kill the four people when he brushed the medicine away. In this world where the strong were respected, there was a price to pay for offending a strong person. Not to mention, after the other party showed mercy, they still launched a sneak attack. As for the young man in green killing the four people, they were only shocked by his skills. They felt that it was natural for him to kill the four people. The innkeeper was also a person with cultivation. Although his cultivation was not high, when he saw this scene, his face turned pale. He was speechless for a while. Innkeeper. Yes, yes. The shopkeeper quickly came back to his senses and came in front of Fengzhou. He carefully looked at the green-robed young master. Yes, yes. The innkeeper hurried forward and brought the weapons, chinquan bags, and space rings of the four people to the table where Fengzhou was and placed them in front of her. Young master, it's all here. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He had been running the inn for some time and had changed the items in the inn countless times. It seemed that he had wasted his time doing business for the past few days. Chapter 21:35. Fengzhou pushed the weapons of the four people in front of him and gave him some gold coins to clean up the mess. Hearing this, the shopkeeper was slightly surprised. He looked at the four weapons on the table and asked with uncertainty, "Young master, you're giving them to me?" Even if these four weapons were sold, they could be sold for quite a bit of money. "And, they're for you." Fengzhou raised his wine cup and drank the wine. "Thank you, young master, thank you, young master." The shopkeeper was instantly overjoyed. After putting away the items, he called the waiter and the two of them dragged the corpses to the back to bury them. Then he cleaned up the first floor and finally gave Fengzhou a pot of hot wine. "Young master, please drink and eat. If it's not enough, there's more," the shopkeeper said with a smile. After giving the items, he left. The young married woman sitting in the corner with the child in her arms saw this scene and couldn't help but hesitate. This young master was so powerful. Could it be that he really had the ability? Could it be that his medical skills were really that good? Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel worried. After hesitating, she walked forward with the child in her arms. "Young master." Fengzhou raised his brows and looked at the young married woman in front of him. "Young master, can you take a look at my child?" She gathered her courage and thought about it. This young master had asked her to let him treat the child, but she refused. Now that she brought the child to him to treat him, he wouldn't refuse, right? However, she thought too highly of herself and underestimated others. Naturally, she missed the opportunity. A smile appeared on the corners of Fengzhou's mouth when she heard this. She took a sip of wine and said, "You refused me when I wanted to save your child. Since that's the case, you can go find someone else. I'm not in the mood right now." The young married woman froze and said, "Young master." This young married woman didn't know young master had the ability. "I was just worried about my child. There's only one chance. Since you've missed it, then so be it. What happens in the future is your business. What does it have to do with me?" she said casually and didn't look at the married woman. "Young master can really cure my child?" The married woman heard his words and couldn't help asking. Because this young man had a confident look on his face and spoke as if this illness wasn't a big problem for him. Fengzhou smiled and ate the peanuts as if the woman in front of him was invisible. "Young master, saving a life is more meritorious than building a 7-storied pagoda. Please save my child." She knelt down with the child in her arms and begged. Looking at the young woman kneeling on the ground, Fengzhou played with the wine glass and asked, "Do you have money?" The young woman took out some pieces of silver. "I only have this much." "Then do you have any 500-year-old spiritual herbs?" Fengzhou asked again in a casual tone, as if they were chatting. "No. The young woman shook her head. Hearing this, Fengjiu curled his lips into a smile. If you don't have money or medicine, how are you going to seek treatment? How about this? Kowtow to me 1,000 times first. Maybe if I'm in a good mood, I'll take a look at your child. Hearing this, resentment appeared in the young woman's eyes. Young master, since you know medicine, why aren't you willing to save him? Didn't you want me to give my son to you to treat? Now that I'm willing to let you treat my child, why are you making things difficult for me? A doctor has the heart of a parent. How can you not save him? Chapter 21:36. What kind of twisted logic was this? She would be saved just because she knew medicine? Could it be that rich people had to give their money to poor people? Could it be that this woman had forgotten that she was the one who had rejected the green-clothed youth's good intentions? Now that the green-clothed youth did not save her, she was blaming him. Moreover, the youth had asked her to kowtow 1,000 times to see her sincerity. She had no money and no items, so she wanted to ask someone to save her with a few words. How could there be such a cheap thing in this world? Not only did the guests on the first and second floors frown, even the shopkeeper and the waiter felt that this young woman was wrong. Previously, they pitied her and let her in to rest for the night. Who knew that this woman was not a grateful person? They could see that if the green-clothed young master had not killed those people, this young woman would have fallen into the hands of those 4 people in the end. It was also because they could see that they were dissatisfied with this woman's resentful words. How could a person be so greedy and unsatisfied and not know what was good for them? When Fengjiu heard the young woman's words, he was not angry. He only smiled and ignored her as he drank his wine. He allowed the woman to kneel there and did not ask her to get up. The woman seemed to have a plan. She felt that if she knelt here, this young man would definitely not be able to stand everyone's gazes and agree to treat her child. Unfortunately, her calculations were wrong. Fengjiu drank his wine and ate his meat in satisfaction. The woman knelt in front of the table and smelled the fragrance of the wine and meat, but she only watched. She could not help but swallow her saliva. Seeing that the youth ignored her and that her knees were sore from kneeling, she carried the child with one hand and supported herself on the chair with the other to stand up. She did not leave. Instead, she pulled open the table and prepared to sit down. However, when Fengjiu saw this scene, he flicked his finger and a stream of air attacked. The chair retreated, and the woman who was about to sit down sat on nothing. She fell to the ground in a sorry state. Ouch! She cried out in pain and hugged the child in her arms tightly. The grievances, anger, and resentment in her heart all surged out. For a moment, she actually forgot who the person in front of her was. Why did you push the chair away and cause me to fall? You're so vicious. Do you want to kill me? Previously, she had knelt down and begged for mercy, and now she had fallen. Thinking of being abandoned by her husband and having no home to return to, thinking of the child in her arms who was seriously ill and could not be cured, all the grievances, anger, and resentment in her heart burst out at this moment. Fengjiu stood up and walked towards her step by step. At this time, she was slightly angered. There was no smile on her handsome face and her clear eyes were as cold as ice. Her voice was filled with ridicule as she said, "Did I ask you to sit down? Who are you? Are you worthy to sit with me?" The young woman was frightened by Fengjiu's cold face, but when she saw the young man's mocking gaze and expression, she couldn't help but feel embarrassed and angry. She said, "You even invited me to drink before. That was because I was in a good mood earlier, so I allowed you to sit. But now, I'm not allowing you to sit." She sneered and looked down at the young woman who was sitting on the ground. "You don't know who you are and you dare to shout in front of me." Chapter 21:37. How can you do this? How can you do this? If you chase me out in the middle of the night, what if we encounter danger? You can't chase us out. The young woman shouted and refused to leave. However, she was no match for the waiter's pull and was eventually pulled out of the inn. However, just as the waiter walked back, the young woman followed him again. "How can you chase me away? My child is still sick. What if he catches a cold and his condition worsens? Let me in, I'll sit in the corner, I won't get in the way of the other guests." The waiter pushed her. "You haven't obstructed the other guests yet. The young master was drinking and sitting there properly. You went up to provoke him and sat at his table without saying a word. You even pointed at his nose and scolded him. I only let you in because you were pitiful, but I didn't expect you to be such an ungrateful person. Go far away." The young woman staggered back a few steps. Seeing the door of the inn close and that she could no longer enter, she stood outside and cursed loudly. "Are you just trying to curry favor with that cyan-robed young master because he's a young master from an aristocratic family? How can you be like this? I'm alone with a sick child, and my husband doesn't want me anymore. I'm homeless, and now even you want to chase me away. Aren't you guys too cold-blooded?" When the waiter heard those words from inside, he also scolded angrily, "Ingrate, heartless, ungrateful, you deserve it." Fengjiu listened to the voices outside and did not say anything. He only played with his cup, thinking about something. The guests on the first and second floors did not plead for the woman. They only drank and chatted until the sky gradually brightened and the city gates opened. Only then did the people in the inn leave one after another. At this time, in front of the Heavenly Dan building, the young woman who was chased out of the inn last night was kneeling in front of the door with her child in her arms. "I beg you, let me see the ghost doctor. My child is very sick, please save him, ghost doctor." She kowtowed and said, "I heard that there is a ghost doctor in the Heavenly Dan building who is very skilled in medicine, so I specially came from a faraway place. In order to treat the child's illness, the family's money was spent, and my husband also divorced me and chased me out. Now, I have nothing left, only my child. I beg you, please save my child." She hugged her child and knelt in front of the entrance of the Heavenly Dan building, crying and begging. She also talked about her miserable experiences along the way, causing a large group of people to gather in front of the Heavenly Dan building. Outside the Heavenly Dan building, Yang Xiao, after hearing the woman's words, he couldn't help but walk inside and come to Lang Hua and Du Fan's side. "Big brother Lang Hua, big brother Du, big brother Lang Hua." Lang Hua and Du Fan were drinking tea at a side table on the first floor. After hearing Yang Xiao's words, the two looked at each other and smiled. Du Fan said, "There are many pitiful people in this world. How is this woman pitiful? I don't feel it. But she said that her child is very sick. I saw it too. Her child's face is very pale. In the end, she still couldn't bear it. After all, the child was so young. What if he really had a serious illness? Wouldn't it be too heartless to just leave it be?" Chapter 21:38. "What do you mean?" She was slightly startled. She tilted her head and looked at him with a pair of puzzled eyes. She did not quite understand. This woman came to seek medical treatment, but she directly knelt down outside the Heavenly Pill building and cried and begged. It's fine if she just cried and begged, but she also talked about her miserable experience in order to gain sympathy. Lang Hua smiled gently, looked at Yang Xiao, and said, "On one hand, she was begging, and on the other hand, she was forcing us. She made herself sound so miserable, helpless, and seriously ill. If we don't save her, we will end up being criticized for being cold-blooded. I think she expected that our Heavenly Pill building, which is such a big place, would definitely value reputation and face. That's why she directly used the sympathy of the people outside to help her achieve her goal." At this point, Lang Hua smiled. "We don't agree with this woman's methods of doing things, so we ignored her and didn't plan to save her." "That's right." Du Fan, who was next to him, nodded while waving his fan. Although they also had a little bit of compassion, they looked down on and disliked such people. This kind of person came to seek medical treatment. Even if their master was here, they would not let her see their master, not to mention that their master was not here. Yang Xiao only understood after hearing their words. She could not help but widen her eyes in surprise and astonishment. There are actually so many twists and turns in seeking medical treatment? If you don't tell me, I won't understand. Hearing this, the two of them could not help but laugh and shake their heads secretly. She was straightforward by nature, so how could she know these schemes? Brother Langhua, Brother Du, no wonder Sister Feng made you two stewards. You are really too amazing. She looked at the two of them with admiration, thinking that they were so smart. Her gaze could not help but quietly fall on Langhua. She thought to herself that if she could marry Brother Langhua, she would definitely be very happy. She would not have to worry about anything. She couldn't help but ask, but this person is holding a child and kneeling outside. I took a look just now and there are a lot of people surrounding them. Are we just going to ignore it? Our Heavenly Pill building has always had its own set of rules. Since she wants to kneel, then let her kneel. There's no need to pay attention to her. Du Fan said while waving his fan. Hearing this, Yang Xiao left first, not bothering the two of them. She ran to the door to take a look. She saw that the young woman was not very old and was quite pretty. How could she think of such twisted things? From the looks of it, they did not intend to interfere. This woman was kneeling here with the child in her arms for nothing. After Yang Xiao left, Du Fan said, Langhua, Master should be back in 2 days. However, there is still no news from the black market. Do you think the president of the black market will come to our Heavenly Dan building? If what the news says is true, then he will definitely come. Other than Master, who else can he trust right now? Only here can he be safe. However, we don't know how serious his situation is. If his life is really hanging by a thread, I'm afraid. The black market owner is so strong, but he was injured to such an extent. It can be seen that his enemy is very strong. I am a little worried. If Master gets involved, I don't know if he will get into trouble. Du Fan's eyes were filled with worry. Chapter 2139. While the two of them were chatting, outside, Fengjiu was walking towards the Heavenly Dan building. When she saw the people surrounding the Heavenly Dan building, she was slightly surprised and thought that something had happened. She walked forward and saw the young woman kneeling outside the Heavenly Dan building with a child in her arms. She was not surprised to see her again. After all, she had heard that she had come to the Heavenly Dan building to seek medical treatment. However, what made her unhappy was this woman's actions. She was actually kneeling there with a child in her arms to seek medical treatment. She walked forward step by step. When she passed by her, she paused and looked at the young woman who was telling the people around her how miserable she was. When the young woman saw a pair of boots suddenly stop beside her, she couldn't help but raise her head to look. When she saw it, she jumped up. It's you. Fengjiu glanced at her and was about to walk into the Heavenly Dan building. However, the woman quickly walked in front of her and pointed at her as she scolded, "You black-hearted person. It's because of you that we mother and son were frozen in the cold wind for an entire night, causing my son's condition to worsen. You actually appeared here again. Did you know that I was going to the Heavenly Dan building to seek medical treatment, so you wanted to harm me again?" Hearing the voice outside, the people inside the Heavenly Dan building walked out. Among them were Yang Xiao, Langhua, and Du Fan. Langhua and Du Fan were happy to see Fengjiu return. However, when they saw that the woman seemed to have a problem with their master and blocked her from entering, the two of them stopped in their tracks and did not step forward. Yang Xiao, who was beside them, was about to step forward happily, but was stopped by Langhua. Yang Xiao looked at him in confusion, only to see him smile gently. Let's watch first. Manager Lang, my master asked me to come and get the medicine. A man who looked like a butler stepped forward and handed over his waist token to Lang Hua. Hearing this, Lang Hua glanced at the waist token handed over by the man, then waved his hand to a medicine maid of the Heavenly Dan building and said, "Take Butler Chin inside to find Fan Lin." "Yes." The medicine maid responded and invited the housekeeper in. When the young woman who stopped Fingzhou saw this scene and saw that there were so many people watching the show, she couldn't help but ask Lang Hua, "Are you the manager of the Heavenly Dan building?" "That's right." Lang Hua nodded. His smile was gentle, but it didn't reach his eyes. He didn't forget that this woman had just scolded his master. "Steward, this young man is not a good person. He instigated the innkeeper to chase us out of the city and let us freeze in the cold wind for an entire night. Not only that, he even insulted the ghost doctor of the Heavenly Pill building, saying that the ghost doctor's medical skills are not as good as his, saying that the ghost doctor..." Before she could finish, she was interrupted. When Fingzhou heard this, he shook his head and walked into the Heavenly Elixir building with his hands behind his back. At the same time, he said to Du Fan, "Drive him away." "Yes, master." Du Fan responded and glanced at the woman with a faint smile. Looking at her deathly pale eyes, he couldn't help but let out a big smile in a very good mood. "Do you know who that cyan-robed young master is?" "You don't know, right?" "It doesn't matter. Let me tell you, that's the master of our Heavenly Dan building, the ghost doctor you mentioned." "You said that he insulted the ghost doctor?" "He instigated the innkeeper to chase you away and freeze in the cold wind for an entire night." If that's the case, then I really have to say that you deserve it." Chapter 2140. He stared at the pale-faced woman, and his voice turned cold. "How dare you slander my master and fabricate lies?" The surrounding people were also stunned when they saw this scene. It turned out that the young man was the Heavenly Pill Pavilion's building master disguised as a man. No wonder. They were wondering why the young man's bearing was so outstanding. It turned out that he was the building master of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, the ghost doctor. Thinking of the woman who was holding the child crying and blaming him, and seeing this scene, their expressions changed from agreement to disdain. They had thought that the woman was so miserable. If she begged, the ghost doctor might save her child's life. Who knew that the woman had such thoughts? It was true that one could know a person for a long time without understanding their true nature. The woman's body went limp, and she fell to the ground with the child in her arms. She was unable to regain her senses for a long time. How could this be? How could this be? She had clearly come to seek medical treatment. How could this be? Drag her away. Don't be an eyesore here. Du Fan ordered 2 Phoenix guards to drag the woman away. He was about to turn around and enter when the woman suddenly pounced on him and hugged his calf. "Don't chase me away. I'm here to seek medical treatment. I begged the ghost doctor to save my child. My child is so sick that he's about to die." Du Fan lowered his head and looked at the woman who was hugging his calf. He said coldly, "Your child's illness is not our fault. However, if he dies of illness, it's your fault. A person like you has no right to ask my master for help. Get lost." He retracted his foot and walked inside. "No, it's not like that." Noted she fell to the ground and was pulled away by 2 Phoenix guards. When they saw this scene again, no one sympathized with her anymore. On the contrary, they felt that she deserved it. Inside the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, "Sister Feng, why did that woman say that about you?" Yang Xiao was a little angry. She had originally thought that she was pitiful. She had actually slandered her sister Feng like that. It was too hateful. Fengzhou smiled and said, "It's nothing. I just encountered something outside the city." She briefly explained the matter and saw that Yang Xiao's face was filled with anger. Lang Hua's face also darkened. Don't bother with her anymore. By the way, why do I feel that you've lost a lot of weight? Haven't you been eating well lately? She looked at Yang Xiao, who had lost a lot of weight. Her round face had become sharp, and she looked very beautiful. Hearing this, Yang Xiao, felt a little guilty because she really hadn't eaten properly a while ago and had even fallen sick in the end. Yes, I've been eating well. It's just that I've been practicing martial arts at night, so I've lost some weight, she said embarrassedly. She felt that this reason was too far-fetched. When Lang Hua heard this, he smiled and said to Fingzhou, Master, you must be tired from the journey back. Do you want to return to the residence and have a good rest? Have the people from the black market not arrived yet? She asked. They haven't arrived yet, but they've asked around. This subordinate thinks that they should arrive within these 2 days. Hearing this, Fengzhou nodded and said, Then let's return to the residence first. Then this subordinate will return with Master and tell you everything that has happened recently, Lang Hua said. Okay. She patted Yang Xiao's shoulder and said, I'll go back first. You stay here and help. Chapter 2141. After returning to the Feng Manor, the fire phoenix flapped its wings and flew over. It dove into Fengzhou's embrace and happily said, Master, you're finally back. Fengzhou gently stroked the fire phoenix's feathers and said with a smile, I'm back. Is everything all right at home? She then looked at the Ling Shuang who was walking over from behind. Master, Ling Shuang called out. Her frosty face broke into a smile when she saw Gu Mengmeng return. Everything's fine, everything's fine. With me here, what could have happened? The fire phoenix proudly said. It told her that everything had been normal during the time it had been here. There had been no accidents. Master should rest inside first. I'll have the kitchen prepare some food and prepare some hot water for Master to take a bath. The Ling Shuang said and then turned to leave. Let's go. Fengzhou reached out her hand and had the fire phoenix land on her arm. She then walked inside. The fire phoenix asked her about what had happened. Because they had arrived home, the little beasts in the space had also come out. The fire phoenix followed Tun Yun and the others around the manor and listened to Tun Yun talk about what had happened outside. On the way, Lang Hua gave her a simple explanation of what had happened at the Heavenly Pill building. After arriving at the manor, Fengzhou ate and returned to her room to take a bath. She told them to come find her if there was anything and went to rest in her room. When the sky had darkened, Fengzhou, who had not yet woken up, was woken up by a knock on the door. Master, there's news from the building. The people from the black market have arrived. Hearing this, Fengzhou got up. After putting on her clothes, she opened the door and walked out. The master of the black market has arrived. That's right. Lang Hua nodded in response and said, the situation might not be good. The person who came to pass on the message said that Fan Lin has asked you to come over immediately. Let's go. Fengzhou walked outside. Only Fire Phoenix, who was perched on a branch, quietly followed him. As for Swallow the Cloud, Ling Shuang, and the others, they stayed in the mansion. The distance between the Feng Manor and the Heavenly Pill building was not far. In addition to their fast pace, the two of them entered through the back door and directly arrived at the backyard. Upon entering, they saw that there were quite a few black guards guarding the backyard of the Heavenly Pill building. Every single one of them had top-notch strength. Seeing the two of them suddenly appear, they immediately made an attack gesture. Master! Du Fan came forward to greet him. When those people heard this, their expressions changed slightly, and they stopped. What's the situation? She asked as she walked inside. I heard from Fan Lin that it's not good. He's inside right now. Master, quickly go in and take a look. Du Fan said as he followed at the side. Are you the ghost Dr. Fengzhou? An old man stepped forward and stopped Fingzhou. That's right. She replied and looked at the old man in front of her. Is there something wrong? The old man stared at Fingzhou and was about to speak when the ancient divine beast Fire Phoenix flew in and landed on Fingzhou's shoulder. I've also come. Ghost Doctor, you must save my master. The old man cupped his hands and bowed. Hearing this, Fingzhou looked deeply at him and said, wait until I see his situation. After saying this, she walked inside. Fan Lin walked out from inside and happened to see Fingzhou enter. He said, Master, you've come. Let's talk inside. Fingzhou said as he walked into the room. When he arrived at the inner room, he saw the person lying on the bed. Chapter 2142. She walked forward and came to the bedside, finally seeing his face clearly. The master of the black market was a middle-aged uncle who looked to be around 40 years old. His face was resolute and dignified, and even though he was unconscious, it could be seen that he was an extremely powerful person. Thinking of the last time she wanted to go to the black market to see him and personally thank him, she did not think that he would be leaving the black market at the same time and she did not see him. She also did not think that the first time they met, it would be in this kind of situation. She walked forward and sat down on the chair beside the bed. After taking his pulse, she said to Fan Lin at the side, take off his clothes. She took out a silver needle from her space. Fan Lin at the side took off his clothes and helped by the side. The old man who had followed her in also stood at the corner of the bed to watch. He saw Fingzhou take out the silver needle and insert it into his body's acupuncture point. After the silver needle was inserted, he took out a pill and put it in his mouth. When the black market old man at the side saw Fingzhou take out a 6th level pill, his eyes could not help but flash. His worried heart finally relaxed. The ghost doctor was able to take out such a precious 6th level pill to save him without saying anything. Perhaps his master would be able to turn this misfortune into a blessing. You guys worked together to seal his poison in a corner, right? After Fingzhou inserted the needle, he glanced at the old man at the side. That's right. The old man nodded in response and asked, Ghost Doctor, how is my master? Can the poison in his body be cured? It can't be cured. Fingzhou stood up and said. As soon as his voice fell, he saw the old man's face change. It can't be cured. The old man's voice was slightly raised due to his worry. Fingzhou glanced at him and said, a poison that can poison him, do you think that a 6th level antidote can cure it? Moreover, other than the poison in your master's body, his internal injuries are also very serious. But the poison has not been cured yet, so we can't use pills to treat his internal injuries. Otherwise, the sealed poison will spread throughout his body. If that's the case, don't even talk about saving him, even a deity would find it hard to save him. Then what do we do? Please, Ghost Doctor, you must save my master. The old man was worried and once again cupped his fists and begged her. Seeing him like this, Fingzhou said, you don't have to worry. I just gave him a level 6 detoxification pill that can alleviate the poison in his body. However, a level 6 detoxification pill won't be able to completely remove the poison in his body. Only a level 7 detoxification pill can save him. A 7th grade antidote. The old man was stunned and his brows furrowed. Level 6 medicinal pills are extremely rare, and even the 4 great sects don't have level 7 medicinal pills. How are we going to find level 7 antidote pills? Without this level 7 detoxification pill, wouldn't master. As he spoke, he suddenly thought of Fingzhou, and hurriedly asked, dare I ask the ghost doctor, is it possible to refine 7th level medicinal pills now? Fingzhou shook her head, I haven't. Currently, the highest I can refine is a level 6 medicinal pill. A level 7 medicinal pill is not an ordinary kind of pill. Other than the fact that the ingredients are hard to find, the failure rate is also high. Ghost Doctor doesn't need to worry about the ingredients. This old man will have the black market search for them for the ghost doctor. Right now, the most important thing is to save Master. Otherwise, I'm afraid that our black market will really be destroyed along with Master. Ghost Doctor, you must save our Master. Chapter 2143. Seeing this, Fengzhou gestured for Fan Lin to help him up, saying, "You don't need to do this, I will think of a way to get the 7th level antidote, but there are some spiritual medicines that I will need your black market's help to collect. Ghost Doctor, please give your orders, as long as they are available in the black market, this old man will immediately send someone to get them. Even if the black market doesn't have them, I will send someone to collect them." Fengzhou had someone bring a brush, ink, and paper, and wrote down all the required spiritual medicines and handed them to the old man. "Search according to these, once you find them, send them to me." "Okay, this old man understands." The old man took a glance, then called over a middle-aged man and gave him some instructions. Seeing this, Fengzhou walked to the bedside, turned the silver needle around and pulled it out. Looking at the black needle, her brows furrowed slightly. Looking at the unconscious master of the black market, she said to Fan Lin, "Take good care of him, if there is anything, tell me at any time." "Yes." Seeing Fengzhou walk out, the old man glanced at Fan Lin, leaving the two of them to guard the room while he followed Fengzhou out. Outside, Fengzhou stopped and looked at the old man. Who injured him like this? With his strength, he shouldn't have been injured so heavily. In the lower reaches of the continent, could it be that there is such a strong hidden expert? The old man paused, then said, "He wasn't injured in the lower reaches of the continent, but here, by a faction that has already withdrawn from the world, the Five Poisons sect. The Five Poisons ancestor has an old grudge with my master. Recently, there was a traitor in the black market, and my master's whereabouts were leaked, causing him to fall into the Five Poisons ancestor's ambush. Otherwise, with my master's current strength, the Five Poisons ancestor wouldn't have been able to hurt him. Then the matter of the Five Poisons sect, how are you handling it?" Hearing this, the old man lowered his head, saying, "Master is unconscious, and we are helpless against the Five Poisons sect. The Five Poisons ancestor is looking for news of my master, so we used a trick to lead him to another place. Now, my master is here, and aside from the core members of the black market, no one else knows." As he spoke, he paused and said, "Even so, I hope that the ghost doctor can find a safe place to settle our master. This old man is worried that if they find him, the first thing they will look for will be the heavenly pill house." Hearing this, Feng Nine glanced at him and continued to walk in the courtyard. She said, "Let's move tonight. Rather than putting him in the Feng Manor, it would be better to hide him in the Ling Manor." The Ling Manor was a bit safer than her place. "All right, then this old man will go and prepare," the old man said before leaving first. Fengzhou went to the front building and had Leng Hua and Du Fan check the medicinal herbs in the storehouse. At the same time, he gave them a list of herbs to collect. Until midnight, everyone quietly moved the unconscious master of the black market to the Ling residence. Because the master of the black market's current situation was like this, if they wanted to treat him, they would need a 7th rank antidote. Before they had a 7th rank antidote, he wouldn't die, but he wouldn't be able to wake up, and the injuries in his body could be healed. During this period of time, they collected spiritual herbs from all over. After a few days, most of the spiritual herbs had been transferred to the heavenly pill house. However, there were still a few main ingredients that couldn't be found. "Master," Leng Hua walked into the loft and looked at Fengzhou, who was looking for a doctor. Chapter 2144. There is news. Leng Hua smiled and said warmly, "You can't find 7-star spiritual herbs anywhere else, but in the Heavenly Sun immortal sect of the 4 major immortal sects, the peak master of Yao Peak has 7 7-star spiritual herbs. However, these 7 7-star spiritual herbs are very important to the peak master of Yao Peak. I'm afraid that it will be very difficult to obtain them." "Oh. The Heavenly Sun sect. She raised her head and looked at Lang Hua. Is it the sect that Song Ming belongs to? That's right, he replied. 7 7-star spiritual herbs. She smiled and said, it seems that the peak master of Yao Peak of the Heavenly Sun sect is quite capable. 7-star spiritual herbs are not easy to grow, but he can grow 7 of them. She paused and asked with a smile, do you know how old they are? It said that one of them is 500 years old, 2 of them are 300 years old, and 2 of them are 100 years old. Lang Hua said, he transplanted the 500-year-old one, so the others should be planted by him. Feng Jiu nodded. That's good. I'll go to the Heavenly Elixir sect and meet Song Ming. She stood up and put away the things on the table. You guys stay here and guard the place. Just do what you usually do. I'll let a few little beasts stay here and guard the place. I'll be back in 2 days at most. At this moment, she felt that the Aurora transmission scroll that she got from the old man was really an excellent treasure. For people who wanted to go on a long journey, they only needed a moment to arrive. She would not even need half a day to go there. The main problem was how to get the 7-star spiritual grass. Should we tell the people in the black market? Lang Hua asked. No need. She waved her hand and said, if they find me, just tell them that I'm going to study the formula for the 7th grade antidote. Yes. He nodded in response. Feng Jiu looked at the sky outside, and then looked at her clothes. The corners of her lips curled up into a smile. With a thought, she said to Wufeng, Tun Yun, and Lao Bai, you 3, come out. Just as her voice fell, 3 rays of light flashed out of her space and landed in front of her. I need to go out for a while and will be back in 2 days. During this time, Fire Phoenix, you go back to the Ling residence. Lao Bai, guard the Feng residence. Tun Yun, guard the Heavenly Pill building. When the 3 beasts heard this, they didn't say anything else. Instead, they replied in unison, yes. Seeing this, Feng Jiu flipped her palm and an item appeared. She opened the Aurora teleportation scroll and the words floating on the scroll emitted light. Master, what kind of treasure is this? Lang Hua asked in surprise. I know. This is the Aurora teleportation scroll. I got it from that old man, Primordial Chaos, Lao Bai said hurriedly. Feng Jiu glanced at Lao Bai and smiled. She said to Lang Hua, this is the Aurora teleportation scroll. It can send me to where I want to go in an instant. I got it from Primordial Chaos of the Nebula Immortal sect. As she said this, she thought of Primordial Chaos and said, when I'm not around, if Primordial Chaos or Zhua Junhua comes, take good care of them. Yes. Lang Hua replied. In the next moment, he saw his master's body being surrounded by a ray of light. Then, her body turned and disappeared. Seeing this, he turned and left the hall. He went downstairs to tell Du Fan and the 8 leaders of the Phoenix Guards what his master had told him to do. Chapter 2145. Her sleeves fluttered as she spun, and the rainbow glass feather on the inner side of her waist was revealed as she spun, emitting a dazzling light. After spinning a few times, she steadied her footsteps, restrained her aura, and raised her head to look up. Between the blue sky and white clouds, layers of clouds filled the mountain peak. Looking from afar, she could see the mountains and forests filled with clouds. Deep within the clouds, there seemed to be an immortal mansion. It was as beautiful as an immortal realm. She withdrew her gaze and looked forward. She saw a boundary marker a few dozen meters in front of her. On it was written the boundary of the Heavenly Sun Immortal Sect. Seeing this, she took a step forward. After a few dozen meters, when she passed by the boundary steel, she clearly felt a barrier blocking the boundary steel and bouncing her back. Oh. There's a barrier. She curled her lips into a smile. Light seemed to flash in her clear eyes. The smile between her eyebrows seemed to have a bit of evil charm. You think I can't go in just because there's a barrier? She mobilized the aura in her body. Her body emitted a green light. At this moment, she walked forward again. This time, it was as if there was nothing there. After passing through the barrier, she raised her eyebrows. She turned around and chuckled. Then, she walked up the mountain. As she walked, her feet didn't touch the dust. It was as if she was walking on the wind. Her speed wasn't any slower than flying. Heavenly Sun Immortal Sect. She arrived at the gate. Seeing that the gate was tightly shut, she was about to step forward when she saw 2 rays of sword chi coming at her. She tapped the ground with the tip of her foot and somersaulted in the air. After dodging the 2 rays of sword chi, she landed firmly on the ground. Who is it? How dare you trespass into our Heavenly Sun Immortal Sect? 2 disciples in white robes stood in front of the gate with swords in their hands. They stared at Fengzhou. Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled and said, "Don't misunderstand. I didn't trespass into your Heavenly Sun Immortal Sect. I just walked in openly." Nonsense. One of the disciples shouted, "Our sect has set up a barrier. Without the sect's identity token, it's impossible to go up the mountain. And you're clearly not a disciple of our sect. How could you walk in? Watch me kill you." Just as she was about to speak, she saw that the disciples' sword moves were swift and fierce, attacking her. Seeing this, she did not make a move, only dodging. After a few moves, the 2 people saw that Fengzhou had no intention of fighting, so they stopped and asked, "Who are you? Why have you come to my immortal sect?" Fengzhou didn't mind. She only smiled and said, "My name is Fengzhou. You're here to look for me." Her eyes turned and she smiled. "I'm here to look for my nephew, Song Ming." Hearing this, the 2 of them were stunned. Looking for martial Uncle Song. The 2 of them sized up Fengzhou with a strange expression. "You look even younger than my martial Uncle Song. How did he become your nephew? Are you sure you're not mistaken?" "That's right, and you have different surnames." The other person also said, not believing that this young man in front of them was their martial Uncle Song Sr. Fengzhou put one hand behind her back and the other in front of her. She smiled happily. "Because we're not related by blood. However, he does have to call me little uncle. I'm looking for him because it's urgent. Don't waste my time. Why don't you go in and report to him?" Chapter 2146. With that, one of the disciples entered through a side door and headed straight for the mountain peak where Song Ming was. The other person stood in front of the door and stared at the leisurely smiling youth. Was this person really Martial Uncle Song's little uncle? Martial Uncle Song had been accepted as the last disciple of the sect master due to his outstanding talent. His status in the Sky Sun sect was extraordinary. If this person was really Martial Uncle Song's little uncle, then didn't they offend him just now? The young disciple thought to himself as he wiped the sweat off his brow. The fact that the 2 of them hadn't been able to force him to make a move meant that he must be very strong. And now that he was waiting here with a leisurely expression on his face, it was obvious that he was an elder of Master Song's. "Senior Feng, where are you from?" Unknowingly, the disciple in his 20s addressed Fengzhou respectfully. Fengzhou smiled and said, "Naturally from home." She looked at the disciple and asked, "How is Song Ming doing here?" Martial Uncle Song was accepted as the last disciple of the sect master due to his outstanding talent. "He's a very famous person in our sect." The young disciple's tone was full of admiration. Not long ago, Martial Uncle Song won first place in the sect competition and became the #1 person among the younger generation of our Sky Sun Immortal sect. Fengzhou nodded. Song Ming and the others were all quite talented. In addition, she had trained them for so long. Now that they were in their early 20s and possessed such strength, their status in the sect was naturally extraordinary. At this time, in the sect, Song Ming was cultivating in his cave abode. When he heard the disciples' report, he was startled and had a strange expression. "My little uncle. Did you hear wrong?" The disciple outside hurriedly said, "Martial Uncle Song." This disciple definitely did not hear wrong. He said that his name is Fengzhou and that he's your little uncle. Song Ming was startled for a moment. He then stood up and walked out of the cave abode. He looked at the disciple and asked, "What does that person look like? Describe him. Could it be Fengzhou? Why would she come to find him? Could it be someone in disguise?" However, who would know that he was related to Fengzhou? The disciple thought for a moment and said, "That person was dressed in green and looked about 17 or 19 years old. He was even prettier than a woman." He could not help but smile and asked, "Where is he?" "He's still outside the sect." Before he could finish, he saw his martial uncle Song Ming's figure flashed and disappeared. He was stunned, then hurriedly followed him outside the sect. Under Feng Zhou's questioning, the disciple told her many things. At this moment, a figure walked out from the side door and looked at her. Song Ming was a little surprised, but also a little happy. He strode in front of her and asked, "Why are you looking for me?" You two can leave first," Song Ming said, indicating for the two to go back first. "Yes." The two of them saluted and went in first. "I must have come to find you for something. I just don't know if you can help me with it." Fengzhou smiled and looked at Song Ming, who had become more imposing after a long time. "What is it? Tell me." "I came to the Heavenly Sun Immortal sect for the 7-star spirit herb." She smiled and said, "The 500-year-old spirit herb that Medicine Peak Lord treasures the most." Chapter 2147. You've set your sights on Peak Master Yao's 7-star spirit grass. You also know that it's his most treasured item. He shook his head with a smile. He hadn't seen her for a long time, but she hadn't changed at all. "It's my fault for not finding it elsewhere. Only he has it, so, you'll help me, right?" She winked at him with a mischievous grin. "You?" He shook his head helplessly and said with a smile, "Let's go. Let's talk in my cave abode. Let's talk about it later. It's rare for me to come to the Heavenly Sun Immortal sect, so why don't you show me around first?" She asked with a smile. "Of course, I'm just worried that you might be too tired from the journey. Do you want to rest first? Since you're not tired, let's go. I'll show you around." He smiled and led her in through a side door. The two figures chatted as they walked in. Many of the sect's disciples saw Song Ming chatting so well with the youth and couldn't help but guess the youth's identity. "You came to find me, yet you still call yourself my little uncle. You really won't let go of an opportunity to take advantage of me." He shook his head. "You're already a martial uncle here. If I can take advantage of you, do you think I won't take advantage of you?" She looked around and saw some female disciples passing by looking at Song Ming with adoration in their eyes. They bowed and greeted him as Martial Uncle Song before leaving. She couldn't help but look at him with ridicule. "It seems like you have a lot of peach blossoms here. Look at all these flirtatious looks. I know you're quite lucky here. Don't tease me. Don't you know me? If there's someone I like, I'll be the first to tell you." He tilted his head slightly to look at her and saw that her face was the same as before. Her expression was relaxed and languid, just like the her in his memories. He said, "How are you and Xianyuan Mose? I've waited for so long, but you still haven't invited me to your wedding." Hearing this, she waved her hand and sighed, One of us is always in the east and the other in the west. He went overseas not long ago and I don't know when he'll be back. I'm in 100 River City right now and have so many things to do that I don't have time to think about inviting you to my wedding. We only found out about your family situation later. He looked at her and said, "I'm sorry, we weren't able to help." She patted his shoulder and said, "You don't have to say that. You know how I am. I clearly distinguish between kindness and hatred. Those people dared to make a move on my family. Sooner or later, I will find their nest. The people of the demon sovereign are not easy to deal with." Song Ming looked at her and said, "Next time, if you want to make a move on their nest, you must remember to inform the four of us in advance. The four of us will come at your call." "No problem." Feng Zhou smiled, "With your current strength, you'll be famous people wherever you go. If I need you in the future, I won't forget about you. Ever since we entered the sect, we've been cultivating on our own and rarely get to meet up. Last time, the four of us even discussed through letters to find a time to meet up with you." He paused and looked at her. "Since you're in a lot of trouble, why don't I call the three of them to go back with you? They can help you." Chapter 2148. If even she couldn't handle it, then it would be very troublesome and dangerous. If that was the case, she didn't want them to risk their lives for her. Hearing her words, Song Ming didn't say anything else. They wouldn't always stay in the sect to cultivate. When the time came, they would find a chance to go down the mountain to train and visit her. There was no need to talk about this matter now. Thus, he led her to a small path and said with a smile, "The scenery on this path is very beautiful. If we take a detour here, we can reach the foot of Medicine Peak. Also, I thought of how to get the 500-year-old 7-star spirit grass from the peak Lord of Medicine Peak. Let's hear it." She looked at him in surprise. He thought of it so quickly. Song Ming looked at her and said with a smile, "Don't you have a lot of aged spirit herbs? Take one out as a bet and lure him to compete with you. I think, if it's a competition of alchemy, he won't be your match." Hearing this, Feng Zhou chuckled, "That's a good idea." Before she came, she thought of stealing and bartering. She also thought of his idea. However, she didn't know what spirit herb the Peak Lord of Medicine Peak was interested in. "I heard that he's looking for a 500-year-old purple leaf twin flower. Do you have it?" he asked. She was stunned for a moment, then laughed. "Purple leaf twin flower. I have it. I have it even more precious than the purple leaf twin flower. Then I'll take you to see him tomorrow. After we pass by the foot of Medicine Peak, let's go to my cave to rest. We'll talk about this tomorrow. My time is a bit tight. I have to go back tomorrow. I can only come out for 2 days." Although she left the Fire Phoenix and the others to guard there, she was still worried that the people from the Five Venoms sect would come looking for them. It was said that those people were good at using poison. She was worried that they would be at a disadvantage when she wasn't at Lenghua. He was surprised. 2 days. It's not that far from the Heavenly Sun Immortal sect to 100 Rivers City. I got a treasure. I can come and go in an instant," Feng Zhou said with a smile. She took out her Aurora teleportation scroll and showed it to him. "Look, this thing is called the Aurora teleportation scroll. You can come and go as you please in an instant. With this thing, you can almost go anywhere in an instant. Of course, this place has to be marked on it." Song Ming's eyes lit up as he looked at the Aurora teleportation scroll in his hand. Just as he was about to praise it, he heard a voice in front of him. "It is indeed a treasure." Hearing the sudden female voice, Feng Zhou narrowed his eyes and looked at the beautiful woman in white who was slowly walking over. She was dressed in the white robes of the sect, and her ink-black hair naturally fell behind her. As she walked, the hem of her robes gently swayed, creating beautiful petals. Before she even got close, a faint floral fragrance filled the air. Seeing the beauty staring at the Aurora teleportation scroll in Song Ming's hand, she couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Her lips curled into a devilish smile. She put a hand on Song Ming's shoulder and asked, "Little Song Song, who is this beauty?" Hearing the words, "Little Song Song," Song Ming couldn't help but feel speechless. He glanced at her speechlessly. Can you not play with me like this? You don't like it? Then she's called Little Ming Ming. Tell me, who is this beauty? Chapter 2149. The corner of Song Ming's mouth twitched. What kind of weird hobby did she have? As a woman, she actually wanted to flirt with other women. Let's go. I'll bring you to rest. He closed the teleportation scroll in his hand and was about to leave with Fengjiu when the woman called out to them. Senior brother Song, aren't you going to introduce us? The woman turned sideways and looked at the two people who were about to walk past her. We've only met once. Why do I need to introduce you? Song Ming looked at her as he spoke. He had no intention of introducing Fengjiu to her, nor did he intend to introduce her to Fengjiu. Seeing this, Fengjiu raised an eyebrow and looked at the woman with a smile. How should I address you, beautiful? By Qingqing. She said. Oh. By Qingqing. Fengjiu softly repeated the name. His gaze lingered on her body. He smiled and praised, you're just like your name. You're indeed a beauty capable of toppling cities. Bai Qingqing smiled faintly. Her beautiful face was reserved and proud. She stood there quietly with an appropriate smile on her face. Her hands were crossed in front of her and placed on her stomach. She had long since become indifferent to such compliments. As a result, she only smiled faintly at the young man's praise. She did not ask for his name. Instead, she shifted her gaze to the treasure in Song Ming's hand, and a glint of light flashed through her eyes. A treasure for teleportation. This was a precious treasure. How could it fall into the hands of such a young man? If he had this treasure, he could use it to save his life if he encountered danger outside. However, even her family did not possess such a precious treasure. Seeing Bai Qingqing looking at the Aurora teleportation scroll in his hand, Song Ming frowned and handed the Aurora teleportation scroll to Fengjiu. Keep it. Hearing this, a smile flashed across Fengjiu's eyes. She reached out and took the scroll. At this moment, Bai Qingqing stepped forward. Sir, can I take a look at the teleportation scroll in your hand? She asked directly. Because of her approach, Fengjiu stopped in the middle of putting away the teleportation scroll. Hearing her words, the smile on her lips deepened. She looked up at the beautiful woman in front of her and saw that her beautiful eyes were filled with anticipation as she looked at her with a smile. No. She directly refused and ignored the slightly stiff expression of the beauty in front of her. She then put away the Aurora teleportation scroll into her space. What right did she have to show her treasure to her? Perhaps she did not expect the young man in front of her to reject her request. She looked deeply into Fengjiu's eyes and asked, May I know your name? When Song Ming saw this, he did not say anything. He just watched quietly from the side with an expression of watching a good show. When Fengjiu heard this, he smiled and said, We've only met once. How can you say his name so casually? The elders in my family have told me that because I'm handsome and outstanding, I have to prevent women from clinging to me. Therefore, I have to keep a distance of 3 steps away from women. Speaking of this, he looked at the ugly expression of the beauty in front of him and said, Beauty, you're too close to me. This will make me misunderstand that you have ulterior motives towards me. When Song Ming heard this, his eyes were full of smiles. He put his hands behind his back and said to Fengjiu, Let's go. Let's have a drink at my place first. Chapter 2150. Inside Song Ming's cave abode. That woman called Bai Qingqing is rumored to be the star of the Phoenix, the one being protected by the Sky Sun sect. Fengjiu curled his lips as his eyes glinted with an inexplicable light. Yes, that's her. Song Ming looked at her and said, But I know that she's not the star of the Phoenix. You are. Fengjiu smiled but did not say anything. I've also vaguely reminded my master, but they seem to have confirmed that she's the star of the Phoenix. So, not only are they protecting her, but they're also giving her the best cultivation resources. Although they said that they've sealed off the news to prevent it from spreading, he smiled. He smiled and said, everyone outside who should know already knows, and they all think that the star of the phoenix is that woman. The few of us thought that since the people of the various sects have misunderstood, then we'll just let them be. This way, you'll be more at ease. He paused and said, Huaxian's sect, on the other hand, seems to know that the one we have here is fake. Fengjiu smiled. When I first arrived here, I went to Huaxian's sect to save someone for them. I see. He nodded and said, oh right, you said that you're going back tomorrow. I'll accompany you to Yao Peak later. Let's settle this matter first. Okay. She replied and took a sip of the wine in her glass. On the other side, Bai Qingqing was discussing the matter with her master on a mountain peak. I saw that the young man had a life-saving treasure, so I thought that if I have that item, I'll be more secure when I leave the mountain. So, I'd like to ask for your help. I'm willing to exchange my treasure with that young man. I won't let him suffer a loss. The middle-aged man's expression changed slightly when he heard this. The Aurora Teleportation Scroll. That's an immortal artifact-level treasure. How could a young man like that have it? Master. She looked at him as if she wanted to say something but stopped herself. I understand. Go back first. I'll ask someone to find out about the young man's background. I'll discuss it with the sect leader and the other peak masters before making a decision. Hearing this, she was overjoyed and quickly replied, yes, your disciple will leave now. Seeing her turn and leave, the middle-aged man frowned and pondered. After a while, he sighed, got up, and walked out. In the main peak where the sect master was located. Oh. Is there such a thing? The sect leader was a little surprised. Then, he said, however, why would that young man be willing to exchange for such a treasure? Even if we want to protect the safety of the Phoenix Star, we can't do anything that goes against common sense. If we want to exchange the Aurora Teleportation Scroll with that young man, we have to get the young man's consent. Otherwise, we can't forcefully seize it. Yes, I think so too. That's why I'm here to inform the sect leader and the other peak masters. How should we deal with this? Is there even a need to ask? Of course, we have to get that young man's consent first. Another peak master said as he stroked his beard. He frowned and said, however, isn't it a little too much for us to grant Feng Xing's request and protect her? I'm worried. What you're worried about is exactly what I'm worried about. Another peak master said. Chapter 2151. Yes. The peak master replied and left first. After he left, the other peak masters looked at each other. One of them said hesitantly, Sect Master, we actually have some doubts. We don't know if we should say it. Hearing that, the sect master looked at them and said, if you have something to say, say it. Seeing that, the peak master who spoke said, although we've determined that Bai Qingqing is the star of the phoenix, after some time, we feel that her character and behavior are a little. For a moment, they couldn't find the right words to describe Bai Qingqing. They could only say, although she also has a noble aura and a phoenix birthmark, she seems to be a quiet and peaceful person who doesn't fight for anything. In fact, she's quite a scheming person with sharp words. We're worried that Feng Xing might have made a mistake somewhere. Hearing that, the sect master pondered, that's right, I'm worried about that too. As the star of the phoenix, her vision, temperament, and breadth of mind must be broad. Bai Qingqing's beauty and talent are top-notch, but her temperament and vision are slightly. Ahem. The sect master coughed softly, looked at everyone, and said, how about this? Yuan Nan Immortal Lord, find a chance to visit the Huaxian sect. I feel that the Huaxian sect's attitude towards our Star of the Phoenix is a little different from other sections. Go and ask the sect master of the Huaxian sect. This matter must be done secretly. Don't let the news leak out, especially by Qingqing. Don't make any moves for now. Let's wait for a while. Yuan Nan Immortal Lord replied and said, I'll leave tomorrow after I've settled the matters at hand. While everyone was discussing, Song Ming brought Feng Zhou to Yao Peak and went to Peak Master Yao's peak. Song Ming. Why are you looking for me? Peak Master Yao stroked his beard and walked out. After glancing at Song Ming, who had a smile on his face, he glanced at Feng Zhou and sized her up. Who's this? Why did you bring him here? Peak Master Yi, this is. Song Ming was about to introduce Feng Zhou to him when Peak Master Yao, who was stroking his beard, suddenly opened his eyes and strode to Feng Zhou. Purple Leaf Twin Heroes. Peak Lord Yao stared at the purple leaf twin flowers in Feng Zhou's hand and asked, How did you get the purple leaf twin flowers? Naturally, I got it by chance. Feng Zhou's eyes narrowed into slits as she smiled. Her expression was lazy and casual as she looked at the ecstatic Peak Master Yao. Little brother, how much do you want? This old man wants to buy your purple leaf twin flowers. His eyes were filled with determination. From his point of view, such a precious elixir in the hands of a young man would not be able to bring out its full potential. More importantly, he was currently lacking the purple leaf twin flowers. Furthermore, this stalk was 500 years old. However, why did it look as if it had just been pulled out from the soil? A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes as he looked at the purple leaf twin flowers, whose roots were still stained with dirt, with a strange expression on his face. Where did this young man get such a 500-year-old purple leaf twin flowers? I don't lack money. I'm not selling. She shook her head with a smile in her eyes. Chapter 2152. I don't lack dawn or spiritual medicine. I have treasures as well. She grinned. Looking at the elder's darkened face, she continued, even though I don't want to trade those things with you, but what? The peak leader asked, thinking, what is this young man planning? She doesn't want my dawn, spiritual medicine, or treasures. Did he know that the things he refined were rarely available for purchase in the outside world? How about I make a bet with you? Her eyes flashed. While the peak leader was still in shock, she waved the purple leaf twin in her hand. If you win, this is yours. Hearing this, the peak leader fell into deep thought. Looking at Feng Zhou, he said, Bet. I have never gambled with anyone in my life, and I don't know how to gamble. He was so busy with alchemy that he didn't even have the time to gamble with others. He didn't know anything about betting on big or small bets. Song Ming watched from the side without speaking. When he heard the peak leader say no, he looked at Feng Zhou. Feng Zhou smiled. Instead of calling it a bet, it's more like a competition. Oh. What do you mean? He became interested. This young man sure talked big. Did she know who he was? She dared to compete with him. Let's compete in alchemy. If the peak leader wins, the purple leaf twin is yours. If I win. She grinned as her eyes flashed with cunning. Her tone carried a hint of provocation. I heard that the peak leader has a 500-year-old 7-star spiritual grass. Do you dare to use that stock as the wager for victory or defeat? Hearing the young man's provocative words, confidence, and arrogance, the peak leader was startled. Then, he raised his head and laughed out loud. Ha 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 ha! That his hearty laughter echoed throughout the peak of medicine, attracting the attention of many disciples. Young man, do you know who I am? His brows were full of smiles. With one hand behind his back and the other stroking his beard, he looked at the youth who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth with a smile. Feng Zhou's lips curled into a smile. Yes, old Yi, the peak master of the Sky Sun Sect's Medicine Peak. It said that among the 4 great immortal sects Medicine Peak masters, old Yi is number 1 in terms of alchemy talent. Since you already know, do you still dare to compete with me? He was slightly surprised. Didn't this youth want to directly gift the item to him? Of course I dare, but I'm worried that you won't. She looked at him and smiled. Hearing this, Peak Master Yao stroked his beard and shook his head with a smile. You're an interesting kid. Since you're not afraid of losing, then I'm not afraid of others saying that I'm bullying you. It's getting late, so how about this? How about we compete again tomorrow morning? Of course. She nodded her head and smiled faintly. However, I hope that Peak Master Yao can invite a few influential people to observe this bet tomorrow. I am also worried that if Peak Master Yao were to renege on his promise after losing, then I would be at a disadvantage. Ha 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 ha. Hearing this, Peak Master Yao found it amusing and laughed out loud. All right, don't worry. Tonight, this old man will go talk to the sect leader and the other Peak Masters and invite them to watch our competition. At that time, I will tell them about the wager in advance and let them be our witnesses. This way, people won't say that this old man is cheating children in the future. Chapter 2153. Ha ha ha, good. Peak Master Yao said with a smile. She looked at Feng Zhou and asked, Are you resting at Song Ming's place now? Yes, she replied. Alright, you can go back and have a good rest today. Come to Yao Peak tomorrow morning, and we'll compete. Then we'll go back first, Song Ming said. He bowed and left with Feng Zhou. After the two of them left, Peak Master Yao suddenly remembered that she had forgotten to ask the young man's name. After they left, Peak Master Yao went to the sect master and told him about the matter. In less than half a day, the news had spread throughout the entire Heavenly Sun Celestial sect. Did you hear? There's an arrogant young man who wants to compete with Peak Master Yao in alchemy. I heard that this young man is Junior Uncle Song's little uncle. How is that possible? It should be a joke. I saw them when they came in, and they seem to be friends who have known each other for many years. However, this young man is quite brave. He dares to compete with Peak Master Yao in alchemy. Doesn't he know that our Heavenly Sun sect's Peak Master Yao is the most skilled in alchemy among the 4 major celestial sects? That's why I said that this young man doesn't know his place. I heard that he even brought an extremely precious purple leaf hero spirit herb as a bet if he lost the competition. I wonder which clan's prodigal son is from. The purple leaf hero spirit herb is a priceless treasure. I heard that Peak Master Yao spent a lot of effort to find such a spirit herb. I didn't expect it to be delivered to her doorstep in the end. I heard that the competition will be held at Yao Peak tomorrow. I must go and take a look. Yao Peak has never had such a competition before. That's right. The other peaks in our sect have regular competitions, but Yao Peak doesn't. However, I can see Peak Master Yao refining pills this time. I must go and take a look no matter what. The other Peak Masters were a little surprised by the news that had spread throughout the sect. They had wanted to ask about the young man's background, but who knew that Peak Master Yao was so focused on the Purple Leaf Twin Heroes that he had forgotten to ask about the other party's background. Hearing this, everyone could only shake their heads and smile. Since the Medicine Peak Master, Old Man Yi, felt that there was no problem, they would not ask any further. Tomorrow, they would follow the sect leader to watch the competition. It could be considered as finding something interesting to do in these peaceful days. After Bai Qingqing and her master learned of this matter, the two of them headed towards Song Ming's cave residence. At this time, Feng Zhou was drinking wine, eating meat, and chatting in Song Ming's cave residence. Tomorrow, when the results of the alchemy come out, will you leave after you get the elixirs? Song Ming asked as he poured her a cup of wine. Yes. Once you get the spiritual medicine, go back. When you go down the mountain to gain experience, come to my place for a walk. I'll take good care of you. She took a sip of wine, narrowed her eyes, and said with a smile, It's even better to call the 3 of them together. All right. Song Ming nodded. At this time, he heard a sound coming from outside. He glanced at Feng Zhou and said, I'll go take a look. You continue to drink." With that, he got up and walked out. When he came outside, he saw Bai Qingqing and her master. He could not help but raise his eyebrows. "Peak Master, why are you here so late? Is there something wrong?" Chapter 2154. Hearing this, Song Ming's heart skipped a beat. He turned his body slightly and made a gesture of invitation. "Peak Master, please." Feng Zhou, who was eating inside, heard the commotion outside. He turned his head slightly and saw Song Ming bringing Bai Qingqing and a group of middle-aged men in. Seeing Bai Qingqing, Feng Zhou put down the chopsticks in his hand. With a devilish smile, he looked at her slightly. "Beauty, are you here to look for me?" He did not treat Feng Zhou as his master at all. He was flirting with Feng Zhou's disciple in front of him. Seeing this, Song Ming's eyes flashed with a smile. He stood aside and looked at the ground as if there was some treasure on the ground. Seeing the young man's behavior, Yuan he frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "I am Qingqing's master, Yuan he Celestial." "Oh, Celestial, are you here to look for Song Ming? Then I won't disturb you. You can talk." She stood up and looked like she was about to leave. Seeing this, Yuan he Celestial's veins bulged. This young man did not do anything, but his words, actions, and demeanor inexplicably angered him. It made him, a good-tempered person, angry. "Wait a moment." He stopped Feng Zhou and said, "I heard that you have the Aurora teleportation scroll." "That's right." Feng Zhou nodded without hesitation. "I would like to exchange for the Aurora teleportation scroll. Are you willing?" He asked and did not use forceful means. "I don't want to," Feng Zhou said with a smile. "In that case, sorry to disturb you." As he spoke, he turned to leave. However, when he turned to leave, Bai Qingqing pulled on his sleeve. "Master." Bai Qingqing tugged on his sleeve. When she saw that her master had stopped and turned around with a displeased look on his face, she hurriedly let go of his sleeve and said, "Master, please wait for a moment. Let me talk to him." Yuan he Celestial looked at her deeply. He did not say anything, but he did not leave either. Song Ming, on the other hand, treated himself as invisible and ignored them. He just stood aside and watched with a smile on his face. Feng Zhou looked at Bai Qingqing with interest. She returned to her seat, poured herself a glass of wine, and took a sip. The corners of her eyes were slightly raised as she looked at Bai Qingqing, waiting for her next words. Bai Qingqing glanced at Feng Zhou and took out several celestial instruments from her space. "How about I trade these celestial instruments for one of yours?" "Nothing much." She stretched out her index finger and waved it lightly. She looked uninterested. Bai Qingqing's eyes flashed with annoyance. "What do you want then?" Feng Zhou wanted to tell her directly that she didn't want to exchange anything with her, but when he looked at the beautiful woman in front of him, he suddenly smiled, but his smile was a little strange. Song Ming, who was familiar with her, looked at Feng Zhou's strange smile and felt goosebumps rise all over his body. As if thinking of something, he couldn't help but rub his arms with his hands. When he saw this smile, he knew that Feng Zhou was scheming again. When he thought of this, he couldn't help but look at Bai Qingqing sympathetically. Yuan he Celestial looked at the young man's sudden change in expression and a strange look flashed across his eyes. "This young man, that what are you laughing at?" Bai Qingqing frowned and asked. "You like my Aurora teleportation scroll?" She gently swirled her wine glass and asked lazily. Chapter 2155. "That's right." She replied and looked at him, unsure of his intentions. Hearing this, Feng Zhou looked at her with a smile in his eyes. "You should have heard about my pill refining competition with the Peak Master of Medicine Peak tomorrow, right?" Bai Qingqing replied. Naturally, she had heard about this and felt that this young man really did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. He actually dared to challenge the Peak Master of Medicine Peak. How about this? I don't want your artifacts or anything like that. If I lose in my pill refining competition with the Peak Master of Medicine Peak tomorrow, I'll give you my Aurora teleportation scroll. Hearing this, Song Ming's expression remained the same. He was not surprised at all. On the other hand, Yuan He and Sir Immortal were slightly startled. They looked meaningfully at the young man who had spoken so confidently. Although this was what he said, since he dared to say it, it meant that he felt that his pill refining skills would not lose to the Peak Master of Medicine Peak. He was just a young man, where did he get his confidence from? If you lose in your pill refining competition with the Peak Master of Medicine Peak, you'll give me your Aurora teleportation scroll. Bai Qingqing was also startled. She asked cautiously, what if you win? When she asked this, she was also startled. Could it be that she thought that this young man would win against the Peak Master of Medicine Peak? How could that be? If I win, hee. He chuckled lowly. That smile, no matter how one looked at it, was somewhat vulgar. His gaze swept over Bai Qingqing. Of course, there must be a wager. My wager is the Aurora teleportation scroll. As for you, from head to toe, you're the only person worth anything. What do you mean? Bai Qingqing stared at him cautiously. I'm betting on your person. Fengjiu replied casually and glanced at her. Do you think that there's anything on you that I would like? If there's anything, it would be your delightful face. She narrowed her eyes and smiled. If you dare to bet, then bet on yourself. I don't care about anything else. You're shameless. Because of Fengjiu's words, her eyes turned red with embarrassment. She angrily waved her hand and attacked Fengjiu. If this had been said by a woman, it would have been one thing. However, the person who said this was a man. Bet on herself. Did he want her to betray herself? This man was born with good looks, but she didn't expect him to be such a vulgar person. Fengjiu easily dodged her attack. At the same time, he pulled her to sit on his lap with one hand. He bent down and asked in her ear, how am I shameless? I'm just thinking that I'm short of a maidservant. If you lose, you'll be my maidservant. Could it be that you're thinking of something evil? At this point, the corners of her lips curled into a devilish smile. She gently lifted her delicate chin and said, if you have such intentions, I can also. Cough. Immortal monarch Yuanhe coughed heavily and gave Fengjiu a displeased look. This young man was really audacious. He actually dared to take liberties with his disciple in front of him. It was really outrageous. The corner of Song Ming's mouth twitched slightly. How come he didn't know that Fengjiu actually killed both men and women? The way he flirted with women was even more manly than a man. It seemed that he still had to learn a few more tricks from her. Let me go. Chapter 2156. Fengjiu loosened his grip and allowed her to step back. He sipped his wine and glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. How about it? Do you dare to bet with me? Qingqing, let's go back. Immortal Yuan, he called out to her. Unexpectedly, Bai Qingqing was provoked by Fengjiu and said, all right. I'll bet with you. But there's one more condition. Tell me. Fengjiu curled his lips into a smile. If you lose, not only will you have to give me the Aurora teleportation scroll, but you will also have to be my servant and be ordered around by me. She said angrily. No problem. But, isn't that a little unfair to me? Fengjiu said softly. Then, he chuckled. Fine, I'll suffer a little loss then. After all, you don't have anything valuable on you. Bai Qingqing was so angry that her face turned red. She gritted her teeth. What an arrogant young man. Let's see if he can still be so presumptuous after he loses. Song Ming looked at Bai Qingqing sympathetically and was a little surprised. This woman looked quite smart. How could she be so easily abducted by Fengzhou without even realizing it? Fengzhou was really too much. What was the use of keeping such a woman by his side? In terms of looks, although Bai Qingqing was beautiful, she lacked a certain charm. How could she be compared to her own unparalleled beauty? Immortal Yuan, he was slightly shocked when he saw how things had developed. He looked at Bai Qingqing and shook his head. In the end, he did not say anything and left with his hands behind his back. Bai Qingqing stared coldly at Fengzhou with her beautiful eyes. Then, she turned around and left. She said, "If you still have the guts to do this tomorrow, I'll admit defeat." After they left, Song Ming sat down. He shook his head and said helplessly, "What are you trying to do? What's the use of keeping such a woman by your side?" "Says who?" Fengzhou chuckled and said, "Bai Qingqing is beautiful and powerful. She's pleasing to the eye. Besides, I like to tame people like her who are a little wild and arrogant." As she said that, her eyes looked at him meaningfully. Seeing her eyes, he knew that she was talking about how she taught the four of them a lesson. He could not help but shake his head. All right. You've got a hobby of your own. It's up to you. I'm not drinking. I'll go and rest." "Which room?" "This one." The next morning, Fengzhou and Song Ming headed to Yao Peak at around 7 a.m. Because the news had spread, everyone in the Tianyang sect was very curious. Many people gathered at Yao Peak, ready to watch the alchemy competition. They wanted to see what the arrogant young man looked like. How could he be so brainless? The sect leader and the others felt that the competition was unfair. After all, the peak master of their heavenly pill sect Yao Peak was the best among the four major immortal sects. If word got out that they let such a senior alchemist compete with a young man in alchemy, the Tianyang sect would be laughed at for being unkind. Chapter 2157. The peak master of Yao Peak had been waiting there for a long time. He was looking forward to the Purple Leaf Twin Heroes. He hoped that the competition would end as soon as possible so that he could take the Purple Leaf Twin Heroes into his possession. Why aren't they here yet? Are they getting cold feet? The peak master of Yao Peak paced back and forth worriedly, rubbing his palms as he looked forward. The sect master could not help but shake his head. "Didn't you say that they would meet in the middle of the morning? It's not time yet. What's the rush? Sit down. You're making me dizzy." They're here. Senior Uncle Song is here." A disciple ran over happily to report, "Master, Senior Uncle Song and that young man are here." Hearing this, the peak master hurriedly strode forward. When he saw the two coming up from the bottom of the mountain, he could not help but smile. They're finally here. I didn't expect this young man to have some guts and not get cold feet." They waited at the top of the mountain for a while before they saw the two coming up. Song Ming brought Fengzhou to his master and bowed. "Greetings, master." The Sky Sun sect master nodded. His gaze fell on Fengzhou as he sized him up. "Greetings, sect master." Fengzhou also cupped his hands and bowed. "Do you really want to compete with Peak Master Yao? With your Purple Leaf Twin Heroes as the wager?" the sect master asked. He thought that if this young man were to back out now, he would make the decision to suppress this matter and find another way to obtain the Purple Leaf Twin Heroes for Peak Master Yao. "Yes." Fengzhou replied with a smile. His gaze turned and fell on Bai Qingqing. Seeing Fengzhou's gaze fall to the side, the sect master followed his gaze. Seeing that he was staring at Bai Qingqing, the sect master did not say anything else. However, at this moment, Bai Qingqing noticed Fengzhou's gaze. She lifted her chin and met Fengzhou's gaze. She stepped forward and respectfully stood in front of the sect master and the peak masters. Seeing Bai Qingqing suddenly walk out, everyone was slightly surprised. This was a competition between Peak Master Yao and this young man. Why did she walk out? Just as they were about to ask, they heard Bai Qingqing's voice. Sect leader, Peak Lords, I have something to report. She lifted her head and looked at them. Disciple Bai Qingqing made a bet with him. She pointed her finger at Feng Zhou, who was standing at the side. I bet that he will lose to the Medicine Peak's Medicine Lord. Hearing this, the sect master and Feng Zhou, the sect master. The other onlookers couldn't help but be startled when they saw this. Then, they started to discuss in a low voice, isn't this supposed to be a competition between Peak Lord Yao and that youngster? The loser has to hand over a 500-year-old precious spirit herb. That young man has a 500-year-old purple leaf double flower, while Peak Master Yao has a 500-year-old 7-star spirit herb. How is this related to Senior Marshal Sister Bai? The crowd discussed and looked at the two of them curiously. They did not understand what was going on. At this moment, Feng Zhou walked out with a leisurely smile on his face. He said to the sect master and Peak Masters, I made a bet with her. If I lose, I will give her an Aurora teleportation scroll. If I win, she will be my servant for the rest of her life. She cannot disobey me. Chapter 2158. That's right. If Peak Master Yi wins, apart from giving me the Aurora teleportation scroll, he'll have to be my servant for the rest of his life. She paused and glanced at Feng Zhou, then said to the sect master, in front of the sect master and all the other Peak Masters, please be our witnesses. She refused to believe that this young man could win against the Peak Master of Medicine Peak. Peak Master Yi, please do your best. She saluted Peak Master Yi and said. She agreed to this bet because she knew how much Peak Master Yi treasured his 500-year-old 7-star spiritual herb and how much he needed the Purple Leaf Twin Heroes. She believed that even if it wasn't for her, he would not lose for his own sake. Peak Master Yi was stunned. He looked at Bai Qingqing, then at the young man, and finally at the sect master. The sect master also frowned at Bai Qingqing. Don't you want to think about it carefully? This is not a game. How could she casually bet on something that concerned her entire life? Even if the Aurora teleportation scroll was a treasure, there was no need to go to this extent. If he's not afraid of losing, why should I be? Bai Qingqing raised her chin and looked at the Peak Master of Medicine Peak. Besides, I believe that with Peak Master Ye's pill refinement skills, this young man is no match for him. Hearing this, the sect master sighed internally and looked at Feng Zhou. What about you? Don't you want to think about it? This concerns your entire life. It's not a game. Seeing the sect master's reminder, Feng Zhou smiled. It's all right. I like to bet, especially when it comes to the stakes. As for losing, I haven't thought about it. So, let's talk about it after I lose. Since all of you have said so, then I will bear witness for all of you. No matter who wins or loses, none of you can deny it. The sect leader's voice, which contained spiritual energy, rang out clearly throughout the entire Medicine Peak. Yes. The three of them responded at the same time. They looked at each other with different expressions in their eyes. Since it's a pill refinement competition, let's choose the same type of pill to refine. That way, it'll be easier to determine who's better. As the sect master spoke, he waved his hand and signaled for someone to bring out the prepared spiritual medicine tables. There were 2 rectangular tables with all kinds of elixirs on them. Peak Master Ya walked forward, stopped in front of the table, and said to Feng Zhou, these are the names of the 6th level pills. Since we want to compete whose pill refining ability is higher, naturally the grade of the pills cannot be low. Yes, of course. Feng Zhou responded. His gaze fell on the bamboo tube. He was curious as to what it was used for. As if he knew what Feng Zhou was thinking, Peak Master Ya picked up the bamboo tube and said, there are 10 kinds of elixir names in here. One of us will draw a card and decide what kind of elixir we want to refine. As he spoke, he tilted the bamboo tube towards Feng Zhou's direction. You're the guest, so you draw. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled. The guest follows the host. You're the Peak Lord of Medicine Peak, so you should be the one to draw. Since that's the case, Junior Niecebai, please draw a card for us. As Peak Master Yao spoke, he took the bamboo tube and walked in front of Bai Qingqing. Seeing this scene, Bai Qingqing paused for a moment and glanced at the two of them. Then, she took out a crumpled piece of paper and handed it to the sect master. Chapter 2159. Purple Heart Barrier Breaking Pill. Hiss. It's actually the Purple Heart Barrier Breaking Pill. This is the most difficult pill to refine among the level 6 pills. This Purple Heart Barrier Breaking Pill is an important pill that can help experts at the peak of the Celestial Sage Realm to break through the karma and enter the Celestial Venerable Realm. It's very difficult to break through to the Celestial Sage Realm. Many cultivators can't break through to the Celestial Venerable Realm because they can't break through the karma. They either die because of the karma or fail to experience the heavenly thunder. If there's this Purple Heart Barrier Breaking Pill, it'll be different. However, it seems that even our master hasn't refined the Purple Heart Barrier Breaking Pill. What are you worried about? If our master can't refine it, then it's even more impossible for the young man. After all, our master has studied this Purple Heart Barrier Breaking Pill for a long time. No matter what, he has the upper hand. Cough. As he listened to the murmurs of the disciples around him, the Peak Master of Medicine Peak coughed softly and swept his cold gaze across them. He then looked at the young man in green robes and saw that the young man was deep in thought with one hand supporting his chin. His lips were moving slightly, and the Peak Master could faintly hear the young man's murmurs. What's this Purple Heart Barrier Breaking Pill? Why does it sound familiar? Fengjiu muttered softly as he thought about where he had heard the name of this pill before. Hearing Fengjiu's whispers, the corner of Medicine Peak Master's mouth twitched. So this young man didn't even know what kind of spiritual medicine the Purple Heart Barrier Breaking Pill was? How could he compete with him? After all, he had studied this Purple Heart Barrier Breaking Pill for some time. If he wanted to refine it today, it should be possible. Looking at their expressions, the sect master looked up at the sky and said, "It's the middle of the morning now. Let's end it at the end of the evening. It's already sunset. No matter who refines it faster, the Purple Heart Barrier Breaking Pill will be tested last. What do you two think?" "I have no objections," Fengjiu said. Seeing this, Medicine Peak Master also said, "I have no objections either." "Alright, we can start." The sect leader was just about to say that they could start when he saw the green-robed young man looking at him. He couldn't help but stop and ask, "Is there anything else?" And Fengjiu nodded with a smile and said, "I'll provide the medicinal ingredients myself." "Alright." The sect master nodded, but he was slightly surprised in his heart. There were many medicinal herbs for the Purple Heart Barrier Breaking Pill. Among them, there were a few that were more precious. Could it be that he had them? "Let's begin," the sect leader said as he ordered someone to place an hourglass at the side to check the time. Everyone in the surroundings retreated, and even the sect master and the others made space for them. With the two of them as the center, there was no one standing within 100 meters of them. In the huge alchemy field at the top of the Medicine Peak, there were only the two of them there. There was a distance of about 100 meters, and each of them occupied one side, not interfering with each other. When the time began, Peak Master Yao took out his alchemy cauldron and began to select the herbs. The two of them completed it alone. There were no medicine boys around to help. Whether it was selecting the herbs or processing the herbs, or controlling the fire and wind of the alchemist, it was all done by themselves. Compared to Peak Master Yao, who had already started, Fengjiu found a place to sit down. He took out the ancient book that recorded various prescriptions from the space and flipped through it. Chapter 2160. Seeing the difference between the two of them, the crowd in the distance was stunned. "What is that young man doing? Is he going to read books and look for information? It can't be. Is he learning alchemy at the last minute? He dares to compete with our master like this. Is there something wrong with his brain? With his looks, we know he's going to lose even without competing. I think he's purely here to play, using himself to play. Pfft. He's even gambling with himself. Could it be that he likes senior sister Bai, so he wants to be her servant? Song Ming glanced at those gossiping people and looked away indifferently. Although it seemed that Fengzhou had never come into contact with that pill before, with her talent, how could she not be able to refine it? They just had to wait and see the final result. He believed that in the end, she would definitely amaze everyone with a single brilliant feat and bring unexpected results to everyone. Bai Qingqing looked at the young man sitting there flipping through the book and couldn't help but sneer. She knew that he would definitely lose. This purple heart barrier breaking pill was the most difficult pill to refine among the 6th level pills. At his age, he probably hadn't heard of it. The sect master and the others sat there and watched. They also felt that this young man would definitely lose. How could an alchemist who had to flip through books to refine pills refine any good pills? Moreover, that was a 6th level pill. Not to mention this young man, even if the other 3 major immortal sex medicine peak masters came to compete, they probably wouldn't be Elder Ye's opponent. On the other side, Fengzhou flipped to the page that recorded the purple heart barrier breaking pill. She looked at the pill refining steps and the required spiritual herbs. After reading it once, she memorized it. Then, she took out the spiritual herbs to be used from the space and placed them on a rectangular table beside her. She took out the ancient divine cauldron, Shenong cauldron, from the space and threw it forward. A small gray cauldron spun out and gradually grew bigger before landing steadily on the ground. She raised her hand and a cluster of natal flames flew into the bottom of the cauldron with a whoosh. From the bottom of the cauldron, it instantly surrounded the entire Shenong cauldron. In the next moment, a strong spiritual aura was emitted from the cauldron, causing the flames around the cauldron to burn even more fiercely. When the spiritual aura spread out and the flames burned, array patterns appeared on the cauldron. Seeing this scene, her eyes moved slightly. This was not the first time she used the Shenong cauldron. Now, the pills in the heavenly pill dispensary were all refined by her using the Shenong cauldron. It was said that the pills refined using the Shenong cauldron were of the best quality. This was her first time refining this purple heart barrier breaking pill. She faintly knew that she would not be able to successfully refine it in one go. However, although it was morning, it was not easy to complete the pill before sunset for a level 6 pill in such a short period of time. The Shenong cauldron could shorten the refining time and at the same time reduce the probability of failure. Moreover, she said that she would go back in 2 days. Today was already the 2nd day. Once the pill was refined successfully, she would have to leave immediately. Thinking of this, she abandoned the distracting thoughts in her heart and focused on this cauldron of pills. For the first cauldron of pills, she refined according to the steps recorded. Step by step, there was not a trace of mistake. However, after 2 hours, when she was about to add the last few main herbs, she found something wrong. Chapter 2161. Whoosh! Boom! The powerful airflow sucked the alchemy furnace up. After it flew into the air, it made a rumbling sound. The herbs in the alchemy furnace were burned in an instant. Accompanied by a powerful flame, it directly spurted out and flew towards the people 100 meters away. The crowd was laughing at the young man's misfortune. As they were talking about the explosion of the young man's pill furnace, they saw a black mass of medicinal dregs flying towards them, and they couldn't help but exclaim. "Ah!" They all retreated to avoid it, but there were still some people who were splashed by the scattered medicinal dregs. Some of the medicinal dregs were like paste, black and stuck to their robes, and it was very unpleasant to look at. The burnt smell was especially unpleasant. Bang! At this moment, the pill furnace in the air fell to the ground, creating a large hole in the ground, and made a loud bang, causing everyone's eardrums to hurt. Whoosh! Damn it! This kid didn't do it on purpose, did he? What kind of medicinal dregs are these? They stink so much. Someone cursed in a low voice, while looking at the medicinal dregs on his clothes in disgust. In front, Fengjiu was also stunned when she saw the burnt herbs. She looked at it in surprise and thought to herself, what's wrong? The steps were clearly correct. She walked forward and placed the pill furnace properly. Seeing that there was no more medicinal dregs inside, she waved her hand and started again. She didn't believe that following the steps was wrong. Then, she would try again. On the other side, Peak Master Yao, who saw the young man's pill furnace fly up and then fall, was a little surprised that it didn't explode. It was impossible to refine a level 6 pill with an ordinary pill furnace, and he had searched for a long time before he could find this one. He didn't expect this young man to have a good pill furnace. However, seeing the young man fail, he wasn't surprised. If this level 6 pill was so easy to refine, then it wouldn't be the most difficult level 6 pill to refine, the purple heart barrier breaking pill. He collected his thoughts and focused on refining. When he saw the spiritual herbs in his pill furnace fuse together and gradually emit a rich medicinal fragrance, he couldn't help but feel happy. Great, it looked like he could succeed in one try. Who knew? As he was thinking, his emotions fluctuated too much, and he couldn't control the fire evenly. Instantly, a burnt smell came out. Smelling that burnt smell, his face darkened. Damn it! Indeed, he was too careless. His mind had only wandered for a moment, and his emotions had fluctuated wildly. The flames had already charred the cauldron of pills inside. Seeing the cauldron of pills destroyed just like that, his heart ached. On the other side, the sect master and the others looked at Peak Master Yao in astonishment. Did he fail as well? From the looks of it, it wasn't easy to refine a 6th level medicinal pill. Moreover, there was still a long time before the sun went down. Seeing that the two of them did not make any progress, some closed their eyes to cultivate, while others closed their eyes to rest. As time passed, Fengjiu failed again and again, while Peak Lord Yao failed twice. He was exceptionally careful when concocting his 3rd batch of pills. Seeing that the pills were about to take shape, he didn't dare to be careless. He stared intently until the clouds in the sky stirred, and lightning flashed. Look! It was heavenly thunder. The Peak Master has successfully refined it. When the surrounding people saw this scene, they were all pleasantly surprised to see the heavenly lightning forming in the sky. Just as their voices fell, they heard a loud rumble, and the heavenly lightning struck down from the clouds.